Welcome to the Crime for Sleep channel. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Story 1. I remember the first time I saw the envelope. It was resting against Sarah Miller's door, barely noticeable in the fading afternoon light. The paper was cream-colored, expensive, the kind with a subtle texture you can feel between your fingertips. No postmark, no return address, just her name written in an elegant, flowing script that seemed to dance across the surface. The black wax seal on the back was pressed with what appeared to be a symbol I couldn't quite make out, something ancient, something forgotten. The hallway of Sarah's apartment building was quiet that day, too quiet perhaps, the kind of silence that seems to hold its breath, waiting. I was only there because Sarah hadn't shown up for our weekly coffee meeting, hadn't answered her phone, hadn't responded to texts. It wasn't like her, not at all. I knocked again, listening to the hollow echo beyond the door. Nothing. The envelope seemed to call to me, its presence a mystery that needed solving. I shouldn't have picked it up, I know that now. But hindsight offers little comfort when you're standing at the beginning of a path that leads only into darkness. The building superintendent let me into Sarah's apartment after I explained my concerns. Everything was in perfect order, almost unnaturally so. The dishes were washed and put away. The bed was made with hospital corners. Her laptop sat centered perfectly on the coffee table, but Sarah wasn't there. And then I saw the letter unfolded on her kitchen counter, those pages of elegant handwriting spread out as if someone had been studying them carefully. I approached slowly, not wanting to disturb anything that might be important later. The first page began with a description of Sarah's morning routine, how she would wake at precisely 6:17 a.m. without an alarm, how she would make a single cup of coffee in her French press, adding exactly 1 teaspoon of sugar and a splash of almond milk. How she would sit by her east-facing window and watch the sun rise over the city skyline. I felt a chill crawl up my spine as I read further. The letter described the small scar on Sarah's left elbow from falling off her bike when she was 9. It mentioned the name of her first pet, a goldfish called Neptune that she had won at a carnival. It knew about the collection of vintage postcards she kept in a shoebox under her bed, a secret hobby she had never shared on social media or mentioned to casual acquaintances. The handwriting remained perfectly consistent throughout, measured, deliberate, and somehow familiar in a way I couldn't place. As I turned to the final page, the last lines made my blood run cold. I'm coming. Detective Morgan Ellis was assigned to the case 3 days after Sarah's disappearance. I remember our first meeting in the precinct, a windowless room with walls the color of weak coffee and fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead. Ellis had tired eyes, the kind that had seen too much but somehow hadn't hardened completely. He had a habit of tapping his pen against his notepad, creating a soft rhythm as he processed information. "Tell me about the letter again," he said, his voice low and steady. I described everything I could remember, watching as he took meticulous notes in a small, precise handwriting that slanted slightly to the right. When I finished, he nodded slowly, then reached into a folder and slid a photograph across the table. "Have you seen this person before?" he asked. The photo showed a man in his 40s with unremarkable features, the kind of face you might see 100 times a day and never remember. Average height, average build, average everything, except for his eyes. There was something in his eyes that seemed to reach through the photograph, something calculating and cold. "No," I said, "who is he?" Ellis tapped his pen 3 times before answering. "His name is Edward Mercer, at least that's one of his names. We believe he may be connected to 3 other disappearances in the last year. all women, all living alone, all received letters similar to the one you described. The room seemed to grow smaller as Ellis continued. The letters all contained intimate details about the recipients' lives, details that couldn't have been gathered from social media or public records, and all ended with the same 3 words. "I'm coming," I whispered. Ellis nodded. We believe Mercer observes his targets for months, sometimes years, before making contact. He learns their routines, their habits, their secrets. The letter is his way of demonstrating power, showing them how completely he knows them before his voice trailed off. "Before he what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "We haven't found any of the other women," Ellis said simply. In the weeks that followed, I found myself becoming part of the investigation. Not officially, of course, but as Sarah's closest friend, I knew things about her that might help. I provided Ellis with names of people from Sarah's past, places she frequented, anything that might create a connection to Edward Mercer. The investigation moved slowly, methodically, like water gradually eroding stone. Ellis and his team pieced together a timeline of Sarah's movements in the days before she disappeared. Security footage showed her at a bookstore 2 days before, browsing the mystery section. At a coffee shop the following morning, sitting alone by the window. At the grocery store that evening, selecting produce with careful consideration. And then in the background of that grocery store footage, barely noticeable unless you were looking for him, Edward Mercer, standing near the entrance, watching Sarah as she shopped. "He's been following her," Ellis said, his voice tight with controlled anger as we reviewed the footage together. "Probably for weeks, maybe months." More footage emerged, Mercer sitting 3 tables away from Sarah at the coffee shop. Mercer browsing books just 1 aisle over from her at the bookstore. Always present, always watching, but never approaching. A shadow that had been in her life long before the letter arrived. Then came the breakthrough we had been waiting for. A partial fingerprint on the black wax seal of the letter matched to a cold case from 15 years earlier. A young woman named Rebecca Thornton, who had disappeared from her home under similar circumstances. Her case had gone cold, but her file contained a statement from a roommate who mentioned a strange letter Rebecca had received shortly before vanishing. Ellis called me late that night, his voice charged with a restrained excitement. We found a connection. Mercer worked as a handwriting analyst for a bank where all 4 women, including Sarah, had accounts at different times. He would have had access to their signature cards, their personal information. "But why these women?" I asked. "What connects them?" There was a long pause on the line. "We're still working on that," Ellis finally said. "But we did find something else. We believe we know where he might have taken them." Property records showed that Mercer's deceased aunt had owned a remote cabin near Lake Tanner, about 2 hours outside the city. The property had never been sold after her death, and satellite imagery showed a structure still standing, hidden among dense trees. The raid happened at dawn. I wasn't there, of course, but Ellis called me afterward, his voice heavy with emotion. "We found evidence that Sarah and the others had been there," he said. "Personal items, clothing, but no sign of the women themselves or Mercer. He must have moved them just before we arrived." But they did find something else, a desk with stationery matching the letter that had been sent to Sarah. And inside the desk drawer, 4 leather-bound journals filled with observations about each woman. Years of notes documenting their lives, their habits, their most private moments. The pages were filled with the same elegant handwriting from the letters. Mercer hadn't just been watching them. He had been studying them, learning them, collecting them like rare specimens. And at the back of Sarah's journal, a single page with an address written at the top, my address. 3 months have passed since Sarah disappeared. The investigation continues, but leads have grown cold. Detective Ellis calls me weekly with updates, though there's rarely anything new to share. I've moved twice since learning my address was in Mercer's journal. I've changed my routines, my phone number, even the color of my hair. I check for strange cars on my street, for unfamiliar faces in crowds. Sometimes I imagine I see him, that unremarkable face with those remarkable eyes, watching me from across a restaurant or through the window of a passing bus. But he's never there when I look again. Yesterday I came home to find something resting against my door, a cream-colored envelope with my name written in elegant, flowing script. No postmark, no return address, just a black wax seal on the back, pressed with a symbol I now recognize, an ancient alchemical sign for transformation. I should call Detective Ellis, I know this, but instead I find myself sitting at my kitchen table, the sealed envelope before me, my fingers hovering over it with a strange mixture of dread and anticipation. There's a part of me that needs to know what it says, what secrets of mine Mercer has collected, what intimate details of my life he has observed without my knowledge. The envelope seems to pulse with potential energy, like a living thing waiting to be acknowledged. And as the minutes tick by in my silent apartment, I realize I'm holding my breath, as if the simple act of breathing might somehow trigger what comes next. Because I know what the last line will say, those 3 words that have haunted my dreams for months now, I'm coming. And the most terrifying part, a small, quiet voice inside me whispers that I've been waiting for this letter all along. Story 2, I remember how bright that guest room was when I first walked in. Sunlight streamed through gauzy curtains, casting soft shadows across the hardwood floor that seemed to stretch endlessly before me. The walls, painted a gentle blue-gray, stood at a respectable distance from one another. A queen-sized bed with crisp white linens occupied the center, flanked by matching wooden nightstands. A writing desk sat beneath the window, and a comfortable armchair rested in the corner. It was spacious, airy, inviting. That was 6 weeks ago, when I began investigating the Holloway disappearance. The first time I noticed something wasn't right was about a week into my stay. I was reviewing case files late into the night, the soft yellow glow of the bedside lamp creating a small island of light around me. I reached for my coffee mug and my elbow brushed against the wall, a wall I was certain had been farther away when I first arrived. I dismissed it as fatigue, the kind that settles into your bones after days of poring over witness statements and crime scene photographs. The Holloway case wasn't particularly gruesome. Sarah Holloway, 34, a local librarian, simply vanished one Tuesday afternoon between leaving work and arriving home. Her car was found in her driveway, driver's door slightly ajar, keys still in the ignition. Inside her house, a pot of water sat on the stove, the burner turned to hide, but the water long since evaporated. Her phone rested on the kitchen counter beside a half-prepared cup of tea. No signs of struggle. No evidence of forced entry, just absence. By the second week, I couldn't ignore the changes anymore. The writing desk seemed to have inched closer to the bed, leaving barely enough room to squeeze between them. The armchair in the corner now touched both walls. I found myself taking measurements, marking the positions of furniture with small pieces of tape on the floor. I told myself it was a distraction, something tangible to focus on when the Holloway case provided so little to grasp. The local detective assigned to Sarah's disappearance, Detective Mills, a weathered man with permanent shadows under his eyes, had almost nothing to offer. "People don't just vanish," he said to me over lukewarm coffee at the station. "Something always remains." His fingers tapped a rhythmic pattern on the manila folder containing Sarah's file. problem is sometimes what remains doesn't make any sense. What remained in Sarah's case were contradictions. Security footage showed her leaving the library at exactly 5:17 p.m. Her next-door neighbor reported seeing her car pull into the driveway at 5:32 p.m. The medical examiner estimated the water in the pot had been left unattended for at least 3 hours before being discovered. Time didn't add up. Space didn't make sense. In the third week, I woke to find my suitcase pressed against the foot of the bed. I distinctly remembered placing it against the far wall, now seemingly closer by at least 2 feet. I ran my hands along the wallpaper, feeling for seams or hidden mechanisms. The logical part of my brain suggested an elaborate prank or perhaps some form of stress-induced paranoia, but the walls felt solid, unmoved, yet undeniably closer. That same day, I interviewed Sarah's sister, Claire. Sarah was particular about spaces, Claire told me, her fingers nervously twisting the silver bracelet on her wrist. She needed room to breathe, said sometimes places felt wrong to her, like they were closing in. She paused, looking past me as if seeing something in the middle distance. Last time we spoke, she said her house didn't feel right anymore, said the rooms were getting smaller. I returned to my guest room that evening with Claire's words echoing in my mind. Standing in the doorway, I could see the entire room at once, now no need to turn my head. The windows seemed narrower, the ceiling a few inches lower. I considered changing accommodations, but couldn't bring myself to leave. Something about this room, this shrinking space, felt connected to Sarah's disappearance in ways I couldn't articulate. By week 4, I had to turn sideways to move between the bed and the desk. The closet door wouldn't open completely, blocked by the edge of the now oversized bed. I found myself spending more time outside the room, conducting interviews, revisiting the library, retracing Sarah's last known movements. But each time I returned, the walls had drawn closer. People leave traces, Detective Mills had said during our third meeting. Fingerprints, DNA, footprints, but what if the trace left behind isn't physical? What if it's an absence instead? The absence in Sarah's case was becoming more defined by what surrounded it. Her colleagues described her as increasingly withdrawn in the weeks before her disappearance. Her internet search history revealed research into spatial anomalies and non-Euclidean geometry. And most telling, the measurements of rooms in her house, carefully recorded in a notebook found hidden beneath her mattress, showing progressive decreases in size over a 3-month period. In my 5th week of investigation, the window in my room disappeared. I didn't witness its vanishing, it was simply gone one morning, replaced by unbroken wallpaper. The light fixture in the ceiling now hung low enough that I had to duck beneath it. The armchair had been pushed against the bed, which was now flush against the opposite wall. I began sleeping with the door open, afraid that it too might seal itself shut during the night. I received the call about Sarah's phone records that same day. In the 3 weeks before her disappearance, she had made 17 calls to a professor of theoretical physics at the State University. Professor Elaine Whittaker specialized in dimensional theory and spatial relativity. When I visited her office, she received me with the cautious expression of someone who expects skepticism. Ms. Holloway described a phenomenon that shouldn't be possible in our understanding of physics, Professor Whittaker explained, her voice barely above a whisper, though we were alone. She believed her physical space was contracting while maintaining the same external dimensions, like the inside of a box becoming smaller while the outside remains unchanged. I thought of my room, of how the door frame remained the same size while the interior walls crept inward. Is that possible? I asked. Not according to conventional physics, she replied, then hesitated. But there are theories about localized spatial anomalies, areas where the normal rules break down. They've never been proven, of course. When I returned to my room that night, I could touch both walls simultaneously by extending my arms. The ceiling had lowered to the point where I had to stoop. The bed consumed most of the available space, and the bathroom door had disappeared entirely. I sat on the edge of the mattress, listening to the building settle around me, thinking about Sarah Holloway and wondering if she had experienced this same gradual compression of space. Week 6 arrived, and with it, a breakthrough in the case. A hiker found Sarah's library card in Blackwood Forest, nearly 30 miles from her home. There was no reason for her to have been there. She didn't hike, didn't own appropriate gear, and had no connections to the area. When search teams combed the forest, they found no other trace of her. It was as if she had simply passed through, leaving behind only this one small piece of her existence. My room had become a narrow corridor by then. The bed was gone, or perhaps the walls had simply closed around it until it merged with them. I slept sitting up, my back against one wall, my feet pressed against the other. The door remained, though it opened only partway before hitting what used to be the inside of the room. I could still squeeze through, but each time I returned, the gap was narrower. Yesterday, I made a final visit to Sarah's house. Standing in her kitchen, I noticed something I had missed before. The rooms were perfectly proportioned, suspiciously so. I took measurements and found each room to be exactly consistent with the building plans. No contractions, no shrinking spaces. Professor Whitaker's theory returned to me. The inside of a box becoming smaller while the outside remains unchanged. What if the shrinking hadn't been in the rooms themselves, but in the space Sarah occupied? What if somehow her personal space had begun to contract around her, invisible to everyone else? What if the same thing was happening to me? This morning I could barely fit through the door of my room. Once inside, I found myself in a space no larger than a closet. The light fixture now rests against the top of my head. I can feel both walls, the ceiling, the floor, all pressing gently but persistently against me. Soon, there will be no distinction between the room and myself. I understand now what happened to Sarah Holloway. I know why no body was ever found, why she left so few traces behind. The space around her contracted until there was nowhere else to go, nowhere in this dimension, at least. The door to my room won't open anymore. The walls continue their patient advance. I'm leaving this record in hopes that someone will understand what connects Sarah's disappearance and my own. Look for the spaces that seem wrong. Listen to people who say the rooms are getting smaller. They're telling the truth. The room around me has nearly disappeared now. Soon I will too. Story 3. I still remember the first time I set foot in the Blackwood estate. The late October air carried a distinct chill that seemed to deepen as I approached the iron gates. They creaked open with surprising ease, as if welcoming me onto the property that had stood abandoned for over 7 years. The crunch of gravel beneath my shoes created a rhythmic soundtrack as I made my way up the winding driveway toward the mansion that loomed against the muted gray sky. I'm a private investigator by trade, though this case was different from my usual work. Alina Reed, a woman in her early 30s, had contacted me after experiencing what she described as impossible encounters at the Blackwood mansion. She had been hired to catalog the estate's contents before its scheduled demolition, but after 3 days of working alone in the sprawling house, she fled and refused to return. The mansion's façade, once elegant, now wore years of neglect like a tarnished patina. Victorian architecture with intricate woodwork, tall windows that reflected nothing but emptiness, and a central door of heavy oak with brass fittings dulled by time. I paused before that door, feeling the weight of silence around me. No birds sang, no insects hummed, just the occasional whisper of wind through overgrown shrubbery. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of old paper and wood polish that had long since stopped masking the underlying mustiness. Dust motes danced in the thin shafts of light that penetrated the partially drawn curtains. My footsteps echoed softly on the marble floor of the entrance hall, each step sending small clouds of dust rising and falling in slow motion. I found portraits, Alina had told me, her voice trembling over the phone. Dozens of them, of me, in places I've never been, wearing clothes I've never owned, some showing me older than I am now. I had nodded, taking notes in my leather-bound notebook, the scratch of my fountain pen against paper the only sound in my quiet office. Such claims would normally make me skeptical, but there was something in Alina's voice, a resonant fear that transcended ordinary anxiety. The main staircase curved upward like a spine, each step creaking softly beneath my weight. Second floor, third floor, fourth. The top floor was where Alina had been working when she made her discovery. My hand slid along the banister, feeling the smoothness of wood beneath a thin layer of dust. The hallway stretched before me, doors on either side closed except for one at the very end, which stood slightly ajar. A thin slice of light spilled from it onto the faded carpet. I moved toward it slowly, my breath visible in the unheated air. The gallery was exactly as Alina had described, a long room with windows along one wall and the opposite wall lined with paintings. Large ornate frames held canvases of various sizes, all covered with sheets that hung like ghosts in the dim light. I pulled out my flashlight, its beam cutting cleanly through the shadows. I removed the sheet from the first painting. A young woman with auburn hair and hazel eyes, Alina at perhaps 16, sitting on a bench in a garden I didn't recognize. The painting style was distinctly Victorian, the brushwork meticulous and detailed. The date in the corner, 1887, more than a century before Alina was born. My fingers traced the edge of the frame, feeling the aged wood. The painting was authentic, not a digital creation or modern forgery. The canvas had the appropriate cracking for its purported age. The pigments faded in ways that couldn't easily be replicated. I moved to the next portrait. Alina again, now in her 20s, dressed in 1920s fashion. Then another Alina in her current age in contemporary clothing, standing in this very room, looking at these very paintings. The date, tomorrow. The quiet of the house seemed to deepen as I methodically uncovered each portrait, 37 in total. Alina as a child, as a young woman, as middle-aged, as elderly. Alina in settings ranging from the 1800s to what appeared to be the future. In some, she looked directly at the viewer, her expression knowing, almost conspiratorial. In others, she seemed unaware of being observed. I carefully photographed each painting, the soft click of my camera punctuating the silence. My training told me this was impossible, someone playing an elaborate hoax perhaps, but the age of the paintings, their consistent style despite spanning different periods, defied simple explanation. The mansion's previous owner, Thaddeus Blackwood, had been a reclusive figure in the community. Wealth from family mining operations had allowed him to pursue his interests in private. He died without heirs in 2017, and the property had remained in legal limbo until recently. The attorneys handling the estate had no record of these paintings in their inventory. As far as official documentation was concerned, they didn't exist. I examined the final painting, the largest of all. It showed Alina, older than she currently was, perhaps in her 40s, standing in the entrance hall of the mansion. She was dressed in black, her hand resting on a walking stick with a silver handle. Behind her stood a man in shadow, his features indistinct except for his eyes, which were rendered in striking detail pale blue, almost translucent. The date, 15 years from now. As I replaced the sheet over this last portrait, something caught my attention. A small notebook had been placed on a table beneath the painting. The leather cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age. I opened it carefully, recognizing immediately the flowing script that filled its pages. Thaddeus Blackwood's journal. I sat in an antique chair, dust rising around me as I settled, and began to read by the beam of my flashlight. The journal detailed Blackwood's obsession with what he called temporal anchoring, the theory that certain souls were not bound to linear time but existed simultaneously across multiple periods. These souls, he believed, could be captured through art, creating a bridge between past, present, and future. "The girl with autumn hair will come," he wrote. "I have seen her across the centuries, always the same. She will be drawn here to this house that has watched her through time." The journal entries became increasingly erratic as they progressed. Blackwood described dreams in which he conversed with Alina, learning details of her life that he then incorporated into his paintings. He wrote of mixing his paints with materials he believed would bind her essence a drop of water from a spring where he had envisioned her, soil from places she would one day walk. A clock somewhere in the house chimed 3 times, the sound echoing through empty rooms. I continued reading, piecing together Blackwood's disturbing fixation. He believed that by creating enough portraits, he could draw Alina's soul to the house where he would finally meet her in person. The final entry, dated 3 days before his death, read simply, "She is coming. At last she will be here." I closed the journal, my mind working to process what I discovered. This was no conventional crime, no murder, no theft, no clear violation of law. Yet something profound had been taken from Alina Reed, her sense of self, her belief in the fixed nature of time and existence. The following day I met Alina at a small cafe 20 miles from the Blackwood estate. Her hands trembled slightly as she sipped her tea, eyes darting occasionally toward the door as if expecting someone to enter. I shared what I had found, watching her face as she absorbed the impossible reality of Blackwood's obsession. "How could he know me?" she whispered. "How could he paint me before I was born?" I had no satisfying answer. The logical part of my mind still searched for rational explanations. Perhaps Alina resembled someone from Blackwood's past, or maybe the similarities were coincidental, amplified by suggestion and fear. But I had seen the paintings, the journal, the specific details that couldn't be dismissed as mere coincidence. "What happens now?" Alina asked, her voice steadier now, resolved. "The house will be demolished as planned," I told her. "The paintings, that's your decision." She was silent for a long moment, staring at the photographs I had taken. "Destroy them," she said finally, "all of them." I nodded, understanding her need to sever this unwanted connection. 3 days later, I stood at a safe distance as the Blackwood mansion was reduced to rubble, its walls collapsing inward, clouds of dust rising against the morning sky. The paintings had been removed and burned the night before, reduced to ash and scattered across a flowing river. As I watched the demolition, a strange sensation crept over me, the feeling of being observed. I turned slowly, scanning the small crowd of onlookers. At the very edge stood a figure I hadn't noticed before, an elderly man with pale blue eyes that seemed to catch and hold the light. He smiled faintly when our gazes met, then turned and walked away, leaning slightly on a walking stick with a silver handle. I never told Alina about this final detail. Some cases are best left partially unsolved, some questions better left unanswered. But sometimes in the quiet hours of early morning, I find myself wondering about the nature of time, about souls that might exist beyond its constraints, and about a house that somehow watched a woman through centuries, its walls harboring an obsession that transcended death itself. The official record shows that the Blackwood case was closed, filed away as a bizarre but ultimately harmless episode. But I know that something more profound occurred in that mansion, something that challenges our understanding of reality. And I can't help but wonder what other impossible portraits might exist, hidden in forgotten rooms, waiting for their subjects to one day walk through the door. Story 4, room 507, was supposed to be vacant, but the maid kept finding it meticulously cleaned. Bed made, towels folded, personal items arranged on the nightstand. But when she asked the front desk, they insisted no one has stayed there in months. I remember walking into the Parkview Hotel that cool October morning, my leather shoes making a soft tapping sound against the marble floor of the lobby. The air held that peculiar mix of cleaning supplies and stale coffee that seems universal to mid-range hotels across America. Detective Elaine Morris had called me in as a consultant, not unusual for cases that required a different perspective. What was unusual was the nature of this particular case. Not a murder, not a theft, but something altogether more elusive. "Thanks for coming, James," Elaine said, her voice low and measured as she handed me a thin manila folder. Her eyes, normally sharp and direct, seemed clouded with confusion. "This one's got us stumped." I opened the folder and sat in one of the oversized lobby chairs, feeling the cool leather against my palms. Inside were photographs of a hotel room, room 507, taken over several days. In each picture, the room appeared immaculate. Corners of the bedsheets folded with military precision, bathroom towels arranged in perfect symmetry, even personal items, a silver hairbrush, a leather-bound notebook, a vintage pocket watch, positioned with deliberate care on the nightstand. "Someone's been staying here," I asked, my finger tracing the edge of a photograph showing the pocket watch. "That's just it," Elaine replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "According to hotel records, room 507 has been vacant for 3 months. The reservation system shows it as unoccupied. No key card has been issued. The electronic lock shows no entries except for housekeeping staff." I felt a slight chill despite the comfortable temperature of the lobby, and yet every morning for the past 2 weeks, Maria Delgado, she's worked housekeeping here for 12 years, finds the room like this. Personal items that weren't there before, a bed that's been slept in, then meticulously made, towels that have been used, then perfectly folded. I looked up from the photos, security cameras. None in the hallways on the 5th floor. Budget cuts last year. There's one at the elevator bank, but it shows nothing unusual. No one entering or leaving room 507 at odd hours. We took the elevator up to the 5th floor, the gentle hum of the machinery filling the silence between us. The corridor was carpeted in a faded burgundy pattern that had probably been elegant 15 years ago. The walls were painted a neutral beige, adorned with generic landscape prints every few yards. Room 507 was at the end of the hall, facing east. Elaine swiped a master key card and pushed the door open slowly. The room was bathed in soft morning light filtering through sheer curtains. Everything was in order, unnervingly so. The bed was made with hospital corners. 2 glasses sat on the desk, one containing what appeared to be water, the other empty. A leather dop kit rested partially open in the bathroom, revealing a razor and shaving cream. "May I asked, gesturing toward the personal items. Elaine nodded. "We photographed everything, dusted for prints too, nothing." I slipped on latex gloves and carefully picked up the pocket watch from the nightstand. It was heavy, solid gold with an intricate engraving on the back. Time reveals all truths. HW to RW 1967. I opened it. The mechanism was still ticking, keeping perfect time. The hotel manager says these items appear and disappear, Elaine said. Sometimes the hairbrush is here. Other days it's gone and there's a pair of cufflinks instead. The notebook changes positions. Pages seem to have been turned. I flipped through the leather-bound notebook. Most pages were blank, but about halfway through, there was a single line written in elegant cursive. The solitude of waiting becomes a companion itself. We spent hours in that room. I checked the air vents, examined the lock mechanism, tested the windows. Everything was secure. No secret passages, no hidden entrances. Just an ordinary hotel room that somehow kept receiving an impossible guest. As evening approached, Elaine suggested we set up surveillance from the room across the hall. Before leaving room 507, I found myself straightening a pen on the desk, aligning it perfectly parallel to the edge. Something about the room seemed to demand order. "Did you notice yourself doing that?" Elaine asked quietly. I looked down at my hand, still hovering over the perfectly aligned pen. Yes, odd, isn't it? Almost compulsive. Maria said the same thing. She feels compelled to be extra thorough when cleaning this room, like someone's watching, judging her work. We set up in room 508, taking shifts through the night. The hallway remained empty except for a late-night ice machine visit from a guest in 502. At 3:17 a.m., while Elaine dozed in the chair by the window, I heard something. Not quite a sound, more like the absence of sound, a sudden stillness that seemed deliberate. I peered through the peephole into the hallway, empty. But when I opened our door a crack, I caught a fleeting scent, sandalwood and something else, something older. The door to room 507 remained closed, its electronic lock showing no activity. Morning came, and with it, Maria Delgado's scheduled cleaning of room 507. We watched as she knocked, waited, then used her key card to enter. 3 minutes later, she emerged, her face pale. "It's different again," she whispered. "The glasses have been moved. There's water in both now. And the watch, it stopped at 3:17. We went in to verify. The pocket watch indeed showed 3:17, the exact time I'd sensed that strange stillness during the night. The notebook was open to a new page with a new line added. Observers change what they observe simply by watching. For 5 more days we monitored room 507. We installed our own discrete cameras. We placed invisible powder on surfaces that would transfer to anyone touching them. We even stationed an officer in the room overnight. Nothing unusual happened during our surveillance, but each morning brought subtle changes when no one was watching. A different arrangement of the personal items, new words in the notebook, the watch sometimes running, sometimes stopped. On the 6th day, I had an idea. I asked the hotel manager about the history of room 507. "Nothing special," he said initially, but when I pressed him, something shifted in his expression. "Well, there was one long-term guest about 15 years ago, a professor of theoretical physics. Stayed almost a year while working at the university, kept to himself. Always left the do not disturb sign up, but housekeeping reported his room was always immaculate anyway." "What was his name?" I asked, feeling a strange certainty about the answer. "Walker, Dr. Raymond Walker. RW, the initials from the pocket watch." That evening, I visited the university library and found several papers authored by Dr. Raymond Walker. His field was quantum mechanics, specifically the measurement problem, the the strange phenomenon whereby particles exist in multiple states until they are observed. His final published paper, dated just before his stay at the Parkview Hotel, proposed a radical theory about observation and reality at the human scale. When I returned to the hotel, Elaine met me in the lobby, her expression troubled. "Room 507 is empty," she said. "Completely empty, no personal items, no trace that anyone was ever there." We rushed upstairs. She was right, the room was pristine, anonymous. No pocket watch, no notebook, no DOP kit, just standard hotel furnishings. "Check the reservation system," I suggested. The front desk confirmed what I somehow already knew. Room 507 was now booked. A guest had checked in an hour ago, Dr. H. Walker. We never met Dr. H. Walker. The front desk described him as an elderly gentleman who insisted on privacy. Room 507 returned to normal after that, just another hotel room, cleaned and occupied without incident. But sometimes, late at night, I still think about those days of investigation, about a room that existed in multiple states until observed, about a physicist who perhaps proved his theory in the most profound way possible. And I wonder about that pocket watch inscription, "Time reveals all truths," and whether somewhere, somewhen, Dr. Raymond Walker is still waiting, caught between observation and possibility, his solitude becoming his companion. The case file remains open, marked unresolved. But in my personal notes, I've written just one conclusion: some truths exist only when no one is looking. Story 5, I still remember the weight of the case file in my hands, heavier than it should have been for its thin contents, just 12 pages of interview transcripts, 6 photographs, and a single sheet of handwritten notes. The dim light of my desk lamp cast long shadows across the manila folder as a gentle rain tapped against my office window. It was nearly midnight, the kind of deep silence where you can hear the buildings settle around you, creaking like an old ship at sea. The Eliza Marin case, not officially classified as a homicide, not yet, but something in my gut told me we were looking at more than a simple disappearance. I traced my finger along the edge of the top photograph, a portrait of Eliza herself, 32 years old, auburn hair that caught the light just so, eyes that seemed to look through the camera rather than at it, the kind of woman who noticed things. I took a slow sip of cooling coffee and began reviewing the facts again. Eliza was last seen on October 17th, leaving her apartment building at 7:42 p.m., captured by the security camera in the lobby. She told her roommate she was meeting someone for coffee, a man someone knew. She never returned. The interview with the roommate, Sarah Kelly, yielded one peculiar detail that kept drawing me back to the file night after night. Eliza had been having these dreams, Sarah had told us, her voice barely above a whisper. Nightmares, really, always the same, someone watching her from the corner of her bedroom. She'd wake up in a cold sweat, convinced someone had been there. I reached for the small tape recorder and pressed play, wanting to hear Sarah's words again, the way her voice trembled slightly as she continued. 3 weeks before she disappeared, Eliza met this man at the bookstore where she worked. She didn't tell me his name at first, just that he was interesting, different, but then things got strange. She came home one night looking pale. When I asked what was wrong, she said he described one of her nightmares in perfect detail, the corner of the room, the feeling of being watched, even the way she'd call out in her sleep. But she'd never told him about the dreams. The tape clicked softly as it continued to roll. The gentle hum of the machine filled the silence between words. When she asked how he knew, he just smiled and said, "You call out to me every night." Eliza laughed it off, said maybe she'd mentioned it and forgotten, but I could tell she was rattled. I pressed stop and leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking beneath me. The photograph of Eliza seemed to watch me from the desk, her eyes holding a question I couldn't yet answer. We had precious little to go on, no name for the mystery man, no security footage from the coffee shop where they were supposed to meet. Their camera system had been down that week for repairs. No credit card trail, as Eliza had withdrawn cash earlier that day. Just a description from the bookstore clerk who had seen them talking. Tall, early 40s, dark hair going silver at the temples, wire-rimmed glasses. Professorial, the clerk had called him. Soft-spoken but intense. The kind of person who makes you feel like you're the only one in the room. My phone buzzed softly against the desk. Detective Mercer. I answered, keeping my voice low, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the fragile connections forming in my mind. "We found something," Mercer said without greeting. "Eliza's journal, hidden in a false bottom of her jewelry box. Sarah didn't know about it." I felt my pulse quicken, though my voice remained steady. "And she wrote about the dreams in detail and about the man, first name only, Raymond. But here's the thing, she started having the dreams 3 months before she met him. In her last entry, she wrote that when she described the figure in her dreams to him, he didn't seem surprised. Instead, he told her the color of the wallpaper in her bedroom, the titles of books on her nightstand, the pattern of her sheets, things he couldn't have known." I closed my eyes, taking in this information. Anything else? "Yeah," Mercer said, his voice dropping even lower. 2 weeks before she disappeared, she wrote that she'd seen him standing across the street from her apartment building, at 3 in the morning, just watching her window. "Bring me the journal," I said. "I'll wait." 90 minutes later, I was turning the pages of Eliza's journal, my gloved fingers careful not to damage the evidence. Her handwriting was neat, precise, small letters that marched across the page in perfect formation. But in the later entries, the writing became larger, more hurried, as if she couldn't get the words out fast enough. October 12, I saw Raymond again today. I didn't approach him. He was standing across the street when I left for work, just watching. When our eyes met, he smiled and nodded like we had a secret. I pretended not to see him, but my heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. How does he know these things about my dreams, about my room? Sarah thinks I should go to the police, but what would I say? That a man knows things he shouldn't, that's not a crime. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is all a strange coincidence. October 15, the dream changed tonight. He wasn't in the corner anymore. He was sitting on the edge of my bed, just watching me. I could feel the mattress dip under his weight. When I woke up, the indent was still there, still warm. I'm not sleeping again tonight. The last entry was dated October 17, the day she disappeared. He called this morning, said he knows I've been avoiding him, said we need to talk, that he can explain everything. I don't want to go, but I need answers. Coffee shop on 7th, public place, 8 p.m. If I'm not back by 10, the answer is in the dreams. I read that line again. The answer is in the dreams. What did she mean? The case took an unexpected turn 3 days later. A librarian from the university's rare book collection called the station. She'd seen Eliza's picture in the paper and recognized her as a regular visitor to the medieval manuscript section. More interestingly, she remembered the man who often joined her there, tall, silver-templed, wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Raymond Cassell, visiting professor of medieval studies, specializing in dream interpretation and ancient sleep rituals. We found him in a small apartment near campus, surrounded by books. He didn't seem surprised when we knocked, didn't resist, just smiled faintly and said, "I was wondering when you'd come." The interrogation room was cold, the kind of chill that seeps into your bones. Raymond Cassell sat perfectly still, hands folded on the metal table, eyes focused on some middle distance. I placed a photograph of Eliza between us. "Where is she, Dr. Castle?" He looked at the photo, his expression softening. "She's sleeping." "Where?" A small smile between worlds. For 3 hours we circled each other with questions and answers that weren't really answers. He spoke of ancient rituals, of dream walking, of the thin veil between sleeping and waking. He sounded academic, detached, until I mentioned the last line of Eliza's journal. "The answer is in the dreams." Something flickered across his face then. Surprise, concern, it was gone before I could name it. "She understood then," he said softly, "faster than the others." "Others," I leaned forward. "There have been others." He didn't respond directly. Instead, he asked for a piece of paper and a pen. I slid them across the table and he began to write, his hand moving with fluid precision. When he finished, he pushed the paper toward me. "When address?" "She's there," he said simply, "sleeping. I couldn't wake her after she understood. None of them wake after they understand." We found the location that night, an old boathouse by the lake, isolated and silent. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of candles and something herbal, medicinal. And there was Eliza lying on a narrow bed, breathing deeply, evenly, as if in peaceful sleep, but she wouldn't wake. Medically, the doctors later said she was in a self-induced catatonic state. Brain activity indicated continuous REM sleep, perpetual dreaming. She wasn't the only one. In the back room of the boathouse, we found journals, dozens of them, each belonging to someone who had understood. Each containing accounts of dreams, of a figure watching from corners, of Raymond Cassell and his knowledge of things he couldn't possibly know. Some of these people were found in similar states across 3 different states. Others remained missing. And despite everything, the evidence, the journals, the testimony of families, Raymond Cassell was found unfit to stand trial. Psychiatric evaluation revealed a man wholly detached from reality, convinced he was helping his victims transcend. Eliza Marin remains in her dream state at County General Hospital. Sometimes, when I visit, I find myself watching the rapid movement beneath her eyelids and wondering what she sees, what she understood that keeps her trapped between worlds. And sometimes, in the quiet hours of early morning, I wake from dreams of a figure in the corner of my room, watching, waiting for me to understand. I keep my case files locked away now. I don't read them after sunset. And I've started to wonder about the weight I felt that first night, why 12 pages, 6 photographs, and a single sheet of notes felt so impossibly heavy in my hands. Perhaps because even then, before I knew anything, some part of me understood what Eliza had discovered. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some questions aren't meant to be answered. Some dreams aren't meant to be remembered upon waking. Dory 6. The aged apartment exuded a sense of history, its walls holding secrets whispered through time. The heating system groaned, the pipes rattled, creating a symphony of familiar sounds that echoed through the empty rooms. To her, it was merely the building's way of speaking, of sharing its stories with those who cared to listen. But one night, as she lay in bed, a soft voice drifted through the vents, barely audible yet undeniably real. It wasn't the usual background noise of the city outside or the hum of appliances. This voice was different, intimate, calling out her name with a gentle urgency that sent shivers down her spine. Intrigued and unnerved, she ventured closer to the vent, her heart quickening with each step. As she pressed her ear against the cold metal grate, A breath of icy air brushed against her cheek, carrying with it a whisper that seemed to dance on the edge of reality. "I know you can hear me," the voice murmured, teasing and elusive, like a ghostly echo from a forgotten dream. Detective Morgan Shaw stood in the shadowed apartment, a lone figure amidst the silence that enveloped the space. Her steady gaze fixated on the rusted vent cover, a portal to a world of mystery and dread. Around her, the forensics team moved with precision, documenting the scene with meticulous care, capturing the essence of a chilling revelation. Alina Reeves, the missing soul whose presence lingered in the air, had been a beacon of light in her community, a kind-hearted teacher with a penchant for nurturing life in all its forms. But her disappearance had unraveled a thread of darkness that now threatened to consume the apartment in its midst. Officer Patel recited the details from his notepad, each word a whisper of betrayal and fear. Alina's pleas for help, her desperate attempts to escape the unknown entity that had haunted her every waking moment, had gone unheard by those who should have listened. Shaw knelt by the vent, her fingers tracing the deep gouges etched into the metal, a silent testament to Alina's final struggle against an unseen adversary. The truth lay hidden within the walls, waiting to be unveiled, waiting to reveal the horrors that lurked in the shadows. The apartment bore witness to the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls, a silent observer to the sinister forces that had preyed on the unsuspecting. Alina's fate had been sealed long before her disappearance, a fate intertwined with the very foundation of the building itself. As Shaw delved deeper into the darkness that shrouded Alina's last days, a chilling realization dawned upon her: the building held secrets that no one dared to speak of, secrets that whispered through the vents, beckoning the unwary to their doom. The echoes of Alina's voice, captured in haunting audio recordings, resonated through Shaw's mind, a reminder of the terror that had gripped the teacher in her final moments of despair. The walls held memories, twisted and distorted like a reflection in a shattered mirror. The investigation took a harrowing turn as Shaw uncovered the hidden passages that snaked through the building, a labyrinth of shadows where danger lurked at every turn. The truth emerged in the form of a man named Harold Weber, a custodian of darkness who had woven a web of deceit and manipulation, drawing unsuspecting victims into his malevolent embrace. Weber's lair, a sterile sanctum of voyeurism and obsession, revealed the extent of his depravity, a digital archive of stolen moments, a shrine to his twisted desires. His calm demeanor belied the madness that lay beneath, a madness that had festered within the walls of the apartment for far too long. With each piece of evidence uncovered, Shaw pieced together the puzzle of Weber's reign of terror, a tapestry of horror that stretched back through the annals of time, ensnaring all who dared to cross its path. The whispers that had haunted Alina now echoed in the empty rooms, a haunting reminder of the darkness that dwelled within. As justice was served and Weber's reign of terror came to an end, the apartment building stood as a silent sentinel to the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. Despite the passage of time, the echoes of the past lingered, a ghostly presence that refused to fade into obscurity. The whispers in the walls persisted, a lament for the souls lost to the darkness that dwelled within. The building's secrets remained hidden, waiting to be unearthed by those brave enough to listen, to heed the call of the voices that whispered through the night. The apartment building stood as a testament to the enduring power of fear and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unspeakable evil. Story 7. In the quiet stillness of the night, a pocket dial echoed through the darkness, not just static and muffled sounds, but a whisper of something unseen. The operator hesitated, almost dismissing it as a glitch, until a voice broke through the veil of uncertainty. A woman's voice, frantic and hushed, uttered words that hung in the air like a haunting melody. "He's here," and then silence swallowed the rest of her plea. The mysterious call originated from an empty house, a dwelling long forgotten and abandoned by time. No traces of forced entry, no signs of disturbance. Yet in the kitchen, coated with a layer of dust, a phone rested on the counter, its screen faintly aglow. The call had been made mere minutes ago, a ghostly echo from the past. Detective Morgan Reed, consumed by the enigma before her, pressed the playback button repeatedly, each replay sending shivers down her spine. The whispered words lingered in her mind, a puzzle she couldn't unravel. Desperation, fear, and impossibility woven into those fleeting moments of communication. The abandoned property once belonged to the Sullivan family, who had fled after a devastating fire tore through their home, leaving the West Wing in ashes. No living soul had set foot there since. The caretaker, a guardian of silence and solitude, attested that the house remained undisturbed, untouched by human hands. "Background check on the number," Morgan requested of her partner, Detective Walsh. The revelation sent a chill down her spine. The number belonged to Catherine Sullivan, the daughter who had perished 3 years prior in a tragic car accident. A specter from the past reaching out through the veil of time. As the pieces of the puzzle refused to fit together, the mystery deepened. A phone, a call, a voice from beyond the grave. The phone, a relic of the deceased, making contact from an abandoned abode. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist in the presence of such inexplicable phenomena. The forensic team scoured the scene for clues, but the house divulged no secrets. Only the phone, its presence a riddle unsolved. No fingerprints, no footprints, no tangible evidence of a living being within those forsaken walls. The phone, a conduit for the ethereal, its purpose veiled in shadows. The recording, a mere 11 seconds of static and breath, became the focal point of their inquiry, a spectral message from a realm beyond. Voice analysis confirmed the identity of the caller as Catherine Sullivan, her voice echoing from the depths of memory with eerie precision. Morgan and Walsh delved into Catherine's past, seeking answers among the living. Her father, now remarried, bore the weight of confusion in his eyes. Her mother, a solitary figure haunted by loss, recognized the voice of her daughter in the whispered plea. The echoes of the past reverberated through their hearts. Mark Jennings, Catherine's former beau, emerged as a shadow of suspicion. Alibis and alibis, yet the shadow of doubt loomed large. The house, a witness to the unseen, held secrets within its silent walls. The truth, a phantom dancing just beyond reach. A breakthrough arrived in the form of a call from Catherine's mother, trembling with the weight of revelation. A journal, a chronicle of fear and despair, unearthed from the depths of memory. The final entry, a chilling testament to a life in peril, cast a shadow over the investigation. Mark, the enigma at the heart of the storm, faced interrogation once more. The journal, a damning testimony to his deeds, laid bare the darkness within his soul. The truth, a specter rising from the ashes of deception, demanded justice. As the layers of deceit unraveled, a grim reality emerged. The buried phone, a relic of the past, whispered secrets long kept hidden. Text messages, a trail of breadcrumbs leading to the truth, painted a picture of manipulation and malice. The medical examiner, a seeker of truth in the realm of the dead, uncovered the scars of violence etched upon Catherine's body. The crash, a mere facade, veiled the true horror that had befallen her, a tale of betrayal and brutality. In a moment of reckoning, the veil of illusion was torn asunder. Mark, the puppet master of deception, stood revealed in all his malevolence. A charade of ghosts and whispers, a game of shadows and lies, laid bare before the eyes of justice. The jury, a tribunal of the living, rendered their verdict swiftly and decisively. Guilty, a word heavy with the weight of justice served. Catherine's mother, a witness to the truth, clutched the journal to her chest, a symbol of closure and vindication. The phone, a relic of the past, now silent in the evidence locker, a testament to the power of voices silenced but not forgotten. The echoes of Catherine's plea lingered in the air, a reminder that even in death, the truth will find a way to be heard. And so, the story of Catherine Sullivan, a tale of tragedy and triumph, found its resolution not in the realm of the supernatural, but in the unyielding pursuit of justice. The phone, a conduit for the voices of the past, whispered a message of hope and closure to all who would listen. Story 8. The town held its secrets close, never whispering about the house standing sentinel at the edge of the woods. It lingered there, a solitary figure in the shadows, its windows like darkened eyes, its porch weary with the weight of time. No one laid claim to it, and the memory of its builder had long faded into the mists of forgetfulness. But when a group of hikers strayed too near, curiosity beckoning them closer, they beheld a chilling sight. Names, etched into the wooden siding of the house as if carved by an unseen hand, stood out starkly against the weathered facade. These names, like silent warnings, sent shivers down their spines, and at the very bottom of the list, fresh and untouched by the passage of time, was a name that none of them recognized. A hush fell over the group as one of them, voice quivering with uncertainty, dared to speak. "That's mine." In the dead of night, a call came through to dispatch, a mere trespassing report on the surface. Mason Wright, the lead hiker who had made the unsettling discovery of his name on the haunted house, was the voice on the other end of the line. The responding officers anticipated a routine case of mischief, perhaps a prank gone awry among friends, but what awaited them defied all logic and reason. Detective Sarah Keller arrived at the scene as darkness draped the forest in its inky cloak. Her flashlight pierced the shadows, revealing the weathered facade of the house looming before them. The names, 27 in total, cascaded down the eastern wall, some fading into obscurity with age, while others remained sharp and fresh, as if etched only moments before. And there, at the very bottom, was Mason Wright, the carving still redolent with the scent of freshly cut wood. "I've never set foot here before," Mason protested, his words hanging in the frosty air. "I cannot fathom how my name came to be here." The investigation commenced with thorough background checks on each name adorning the house. The findings sent a chill through the detective team. Every name belonged to an individual reported missing over the span of 4 decades. Some cases had grown cold with time, while others remained open, a haunting specter in the shadows. But a common thread bound them all: the missing had vanished while hiking alone through these very woods. Forensic experts meticulously documented each carving, noting the depths of the incisions, the techniques employed, and the patterns of weathering. The oldest name, that of Rebecca Hansen, harkened back to a missing person case from 37 years past. The records painted a grim picture of a young woman who ventured into the woods and was swallowed by the darkness, never to return. Only a lone hiking boot by a babbling stream bore witness to her disappearance. Detective Keller delved deep into Mason's story, probing for any connection to the enigmatic house and its sinister carvings. His account remained unwavering. No ties bound him to this place beyond a spontaneous hiking excursion with his college friends. They had chosen the trail at random, guided by an online recommendation. His past held no links to the other names haunting the walls. The focus of the investigation shifted to Mason's companions. Emily Chen, the group's photographer, provided snapshots captured during their hike. Upon scrutiny, analysts unearthed a disquieting detail: a vague figure lurking in the background of 3 separate photographs, always obscured by the swaying branches of the forest. "We saw no one else on the trail," Emily asserted. "We surely would have noticed." Detective Keller, undeterred by the mounting strangeness, ordered a thorough search of the house's interior. While the upper levels bore the desolate air of abandonment, the basement concealed a chilling tableau. Personal effects of the missing hikers lay arranged with eerie precision on wooden shelves: watches, backpacks, cameras, wallets, all labeled with names corresponding to those on the exterior wall. In the dim glow of flashlights, the officers uncovered bloodstains on the concrete floor, faint echoes of past horrors meticulously scrubbed away. As the investigation deepened, a disquieting shift manifested in Mason's demeanor. He reported inexplicable phenomena: whispers rustling outside his apartment, solitary footprints leading to his door but never away, ghostly figures lingering in the shadows beyond his window. Though the department stationed an officer to safeguard him, Mason's paranoia burgeoned like a malignant seed taking root in his mind. A breakthrough emerged when researchers unearthed buried land records within county archives. The house had once belonged to a recluse named Victor Blackwood, a hunter who shunned the light of society. Neighbors spoke in hushed tones of fleeting encounters with a tall, gaunt figure who shied away from human contact. Blackwood had vanished without a trace 15 years prior, his disappearance a riddle left unsolved. Armed with a warrant, Detective Keller led a search party deeper into the surrounding forest. The team stumbled upon a network of primitive hunting blinds strategically positioned along popular hiking routes. Within one such blind lay a journal, its pages brimming with meticulous observations, details of hikers, their habits, their vulnerabilities, their very essence. The script mirrored that of Victor Blackwood's few known writings. The entries, once innocent musings on wildlife, metamorphosed into sinister accounts of humans as prey, catalogued with chilling precision. Each victim on the wall outside had been meticulously stalked, their fates sealed by the hunter's malevolent hand. A manhunt unfurled across jurisdictional boundaries, mobilizing helicopters fitted with thermal imaging and tactical units scouring every nook and cranny of the forest. Yet Victor Blackwood remained a specter, eluding capture with a phantom's grace. Meanwhile, Mason Wright slipped through the fingers of the law, his whereabouts a mystery. One fateful day, during a secondary sweep of Blackwood's lair, forensic technicians unearthed a nightmarish secret concealed behind a false wall in the basement. A workshop, outfitted with woodworking tools and jars of preserving agents, housed a freshly carved wooden piece bearing a name not yet affixed to the exterior wall. Detective Keller recognized the name instantly. It belonged to the lead forensic technician who had scrutinized the house during the initial stages of the investigation. The technician, absent due to illness, had vanished without a trace. Authorities erected a vigilant watch around the house, cameras scanning every approach, motion sensors poised to detect any intrusion. The trap was set, waiting for the hunter to become the hunted. 3 moonlit nights later, sensors blared an urgent warning. Security footage captured a figure emerging from the veil of trees, a towering, spectral presence moving with an otherworldly grace. As the tactical teams closed in, the cameras faltered, a fleeting blink of darkness obscuring the figure's escape. When the system flickered back to life, the apparition had dissolved into the night, leaving only a chill wind in its wake. To this day, the house remains under ceaseless surveillance. Mason Wright and the missing forensic technician have become enigmas, their fates intertwined with the shadows that cloak the forest. The investigation presses on, fueled by fresh resources as reports of similar vanishings echo through other wooded realms. The names on the wall have transcended into a grim legend among law enforcement circles, spoken of in hushed tones or avoided altogether. And local hikers, haunted by the specter of the house at the edge of the woods, sidestep its path, lest their names be etched into that dread roster the names no tongue dares to utter. Story 9. The ancient library faced its fate of demolition, its walls echoing with the final whispers of forgotten stories. The workers toiled tirelessly, their hands moving with purpose, unaware of the secrets hidden within the dusty shelves. It was almost over when destiny intervened. A simple stumble led to the discovery of a hidden latch, a portal to the unknown. With a soft click, the bookshelf revealed its hidden truth, a passage veiled in shadows, beckoning the curious to step inside. The air hung heavy with the weight of time, untouched by the outside world for decades. Within the hidden chamber, silence reigned supreme, broken only by the faint whispers of the past. No furniture adorned the room, save for a solitary chair at its center, a ghostly presence bolted to the floor as if to anchor it in a realm between worlds, and etched upon the walls a haunting repetition, "I am still here." The words, scratched with desperation, echoed a plea from a soul lost to the depths of the forgotten. The foreman's call for help shattered the tranquility, summoning the forces of law and order to confront the enigma within the library's heart. Detective Morgan Walsh, a seasoned investigator with a gaze that pierced the veil of mystery, entered the hidden room with a sense of foreboding. His flashlight cut through the darkness like a blade, revealing the cryptic message that adorned the walls, a silent witness to a tale untold. "Secure the scene," Walsh commanded, his voice a whisper in the shadows. "Let no one disturb the echoes of the past until the truth is unveiled." The library's history whispered of a family haunted by tragedy. The Harringtons, once pillars of the community, had surrendered the building to the public after their daughter, Rebecca, vanished without a trace. Her disappearance, a lingering enigma, had cast a shadow over the family for years, a wound that refused to heal. As forensic experts delved into the hidden room, they unearthed fragments of the past embedded in the chair, a strand of hair, a thread of fabric, remnants of a life interrupted. The walls spoke in hushed tones, revealing secrets written in blood and tears, a silent testimony to a soul in torment. Walsh delved deeper, unraveling the threads of the past that bound the Harrington family to their dark legacy. The timing of the library's donation, a gift tainted by tragedy, hinted at a sinister truth waiting to be unveiled. The pieces of the puzzle began to align, painting a portrait of betrayal and deceit. The revelation of the hidden room's grim secret sent shockwaves through the community, shattering the illusion of innocence that cloaked the Harringtons. Maxwell, the uncle with a hidden agenda, emerged as the dark orchestrator of Rebecca's fate, a puppet master pulling the strings of destiny. The journal hidden in Maxwell's study spoke volumes, its pages a chronicle of obsession and madness. The final entry, a chilling confession of a soul consumed by darkness, laid bare the truth that had eluded justice for so long. Rebecca's voice, silenced by the cruelty of fate, found its echo in the courtroom as Maxwell's sins were laid bare. The truth, like a dagger plunged into the heart of the past, brought closure to a family torn asunder by lies and deceit. The excavation of the hidden room unearthed more than bones. It revealed a truth long buried, a tale of loss and redemption. The bracelet, a fragile link to a life cut short, became a symbol of remembrance, a beacon of hope in a sea of darkness. As the community gathered to pay their respects at the entrance of the library, a sense of peace descended upon the once tainted grounds. Flowers bloomed where shadows once lingered, a tribute to a life lost but never forgotten. In the quiet embrace of the night, as the stars whispered their lullabies to the world, Rebecca's spirit lingered in the hidden room, her message etched in the walls for eternity: I am still here. And in that moment of quiet reflection, justice found its way home, a balm for the wounds of the past, a promise of a brighter dawn. Story 10. The worn wooden plank betrayed her presence with a slight creak as she stepped upon it, disrupting the tranquil silence of the old cottage. Intrigued, she knelt down, her fingers tracing the edges of the loose board, sensing the hidden void beneath. The floor, once thought solid, now whispered of secrets waiting to be uncovered. With a delicate touch, she lifted the boards, revealing a shadowed cavity beneath the house. At first glance, only dust and cobwebs greeted her, but as her eyes adjusted to the darkness, shapes began to emerge. A mattress, a chair, and tucked away in the corner, a weathered notebook filled with the repetition of a single name, her own name. Detective Morgan Reed stood silently behind Sarah Coleman, observing the turmoil in her eyes as she peered into the abyss beneath her new abode. It was more than just a hidden chamber that Sarah had stumbled upon. It was a violation, a sinister intrusion into what should have been a fresh beginning. Touch nothing else, Detective Reed's voice, calm yet resolute, broke the silence. She flicked on her flashlight, casting light upon the concealed space. The walls were adorned with photographs, surveillance snapshots of Sarah going about her daily life, unaware of the watchful eyes that had followed her every move, a shrine of obsession hidden beneath her very feet. Sarah had purchased the quaint cottage from the estate of an elderly recluse named Walter Green, a man with no known kin. The property had sat vacant for months before Sarah's arrival, its secrets dormant. The real estate listing had painted a picture of charm and minor renovations, omitting any hint of the darkness lurking within. I never met him, the previous owner, Sarah murmured. The neighbors spoke of his reclusiveness. I was told the basement had been sealed off long ago. That's what the inspection report claimed. Crime scene investigators arrived, their equipment echoing against the wooden floors as they meticulously documented every detail of the hidden chamber. The mattress, the chair, the notebook, all carefully extracted for further analysis. Forensic experts uncovered a multitude of fingerprints, all belonging to Walter Green, scattered throughout the concealed space. What troubled the investigators most was the timeline they pieced together. Walter had been fixated on Sarah for years before his passing, weaving himself into the fabric of her life without her ever noticing. He had crossed paths with her at community events, shared the same spaces, yet she remained oblivious to his presence. The level of fixation often escalates, the department psychologist explained during a briefing. From fantasy to reality, the hidden chamber suggests a more sinister intent. Detective Reed's investigation took an unexpected turn when she interviewed Walter's former co-worker, a man who seemed uneasy, his eyes avoiding hers as he spoke. Walter mentioned her sometimes, he confessed. Said she reminded him of someone. I thought it was harmless. Any mention of plans involving her? Reed inquired, sensing a hidden truth. Not plans, but he'd mutter about how she belongs with me. I brushed it off as ramblings of an old man. A warrant led them to Walter's workplace locker, revealing a key that unlocked a storage unit registered in his name. The metal door rolled up, revealing a chilling replica of Sarah's former life, a mimicry of her apartment down to the smallest detail. A mannequin, eerily resembling Sarah, sat at a desk, a calendar marked with a foreboding date circled in red. The investigation delved deeper into Walter's troubled past, unearthing his history of obsession and erotomania. Released from institutional care, he had lived a quiet life until Sarah unwittingly ignited his dormant fixation. At the police station, Reed laid out the evidence before her team. In his mind, they were destined to be together. His delusion consumed him. Did she ever encounter him? Anything to trigger this obsession? A detective inquired. Nothing concrete. Sometimes obsession needs no catalyst. A fleeting moment can spark a flame. Unable to shake the shadows of the past, Sarah made the decision to sell the house, severing ties to the haunting memories that lingered within its walls. Detective Reed kept a watchful eye on her, a silent guardian against the darkness that once threatened to consume her. Life moved on, the cottage finding new occupants who remained unaware of its hidden chamber. The room was sealed, the floorboards replaced, but for those who knew the truth, the memory of the hidden depths beneath the floor served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the unseen dangers that may lurk in the shadows, of monsters who vanish before justice can be served, and of the fragile line that separates us from the unknown. Story 11. The tale of the Victorian manor with a dark secret began when Daniel and Meredith Parker moved in, drawn to the charm of the old intercom system that crackled with mysterious whispers late at night. It was a relic from the past, forgotten yet alive with hidden messages. One fateful night, curiosity led Daniel to press the button, and a chilling whisper echoed through the house, asking, "Why did you come back?" His startled reaction was met with confusion from his wife, who denied ever saying those words. The manor stood stoically amidst ancient oak trees, its exterior weathered by time, concealing the modern renovations within. The Parkers had acquired the property at a surprisingly low price, with the real estate agent's unease hinting at untold secrets lurking within its walls. Detective Sarah Reeves arrived at the scene in her unmarked car, sensing that the reported break-in was just the surface of a deeper mystery. Daniel, with a ghostly pallor, recounted the strange events that began with the intercom system's whispers. As Detective Reeves followed him through the grand foyer, the air grew heavy with unease. Meredith sat in the living room, holding a mug tightly, her eyes haunted. She revealed the discovery behind a wall, a hidden journal belonging to a woman named Alina, hinting at a sinister past. The journal entries spoke of Alina's fear of her husband Vincent, suggesting he intended to harm her. Further investigation revealed the tragic fate of Alina, buried beneath the garden shed for decades. Vincent's calculated deception and chilling confession exposed the truth behind Alina's disappearance, leading to his conviction for murder. The house, now tainted by its dark history, witnessed justice served at last. Daniel and Meredith, unable to bear the weight of the past, bid farewell to the manor, holding a solemn memorial for Alina in the restored garden. The intercom, a conduit for the voices of the past, was removed by the new owners, who heard whispers during its dismantling, dismissing them as mere interference. Detective Reeves, closing the chapter on the Blackwood case, pondered the house's silent witness to its own secrets. Known as the house that answered back, its walls reverberated with echoes of a tragic tale. As she passed by the property, A sense of quiet remembrance lingered in the air, whispers carried on the breeze, a reminder of the voices that refused to be silenced. Story 12. The old house had stood vacant, a silent sentinel to the past, untouched by human presence for what seemed like an eternity. Whispers from the neighbors spoke of a young woman who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that echoed through the empty rooms. Yet, when the new tenants crossed the threshold, they were met with a chilling mystery that defied explanation. The bedroom, shrouded in shadows and locked tight, held secrets within its dusty embrace. With a creak and a groan, the door yielded to their insistence, revealing a scene frozen in time. The bed meticulously made, the mirror devoid of smudges, as if awaiting its mistress's return. A solitary candle, its flame long extinguished, wept tears of wax upon the desk, a silent witness to the passage of time. Amidst the stillness, a notebook lay open, its pages whispering of a story untold. Detective Morgan, a seeker of truths in the darkness, pored over the words that spilled forth from the pen of Elise Winters. Her elegant script danced across the paper, a testament to a life interrupted. The final entry, etched with urgency, spoke of unseen eyes and a looming threat that hung heavy in the air. As the room was combed for clues by diligent technicians, a tale began to unravel, a tale of deceit and betrayal that lurked beneath the surface of a seemingly ordinary life. Elise, a paralegal with a keen eye for detail, had stumbled upon a web of lies within the corridors of power. Her pursuit of justice had led her down a treacherous path, one that ultimately swallowed her whole. The detective's gaze lingered on Elise's image, a woman of poise and determination, now lost to the shadows. The room yielded little in the way of answers, save for a hidden compartment that held the key to a truth long concealed. Within the depths of a safe deposit box, a damning revelation awaited a conspiracy woven from greed and deceit, a tapestry of corruption that stained the hands of the powerful. As the pieces fell into place, a sinister figure emerged from the shadows, a man of influence and darkness, whose hands bore the blood of the innocent. Vincent Harriman, a puppeteer of lives, stood accused of heinous crimes that defied comprehension. The locked room, a prison of secrets, held the key to his downfall. Through a twist of fate and the relentless pursuit of justice, the truth came to light. Harriman's facade crumbled, his lies laid bare for all to see. The echoes of Elise's voice reverberated through the courtroom, a haunting reminder of a life cut short in the name of truth. The house, a silent witness to the drama that unfolded within its walls, stood empty once more, a monument to a battle fought and won. The light that flickered in the upstairs window whispered of a soul at peace, a spirit unbound by the chains of deceit. And as the night descended, a sense of calm settled over the neighborhood, a lullaby of justice served and dreams finally put to rest. Story 13. It arrived in the mail, wrapped in a plain envelope with no return address. A single brass key worn with time. The homeowner didn't recognize it, but something about it felt familiar. When she slid it into every lock she owned, nothing turned. It wasn't hers. But when she placed it on the coffee table, the old grandfather clock in the hallway let out a single, hollow chime despite having been broken for years. Sarah Miller reported the strange occurrence to authorities after finding the mysterious key. What seemed like an odd mishap soon unraveled into one of the most disturbing criminal investigations the quiet suburban neighborhood had ever witnessed. The responding officer initially dismissed her concerns. A key in the mail, perhaps a mistake, he suggested, but Sarah insisted something felt wrong. The officer reluctantly took the key as evidence, mostly to appease her, placing it in a small evidence bag that would later become central to a sprawling investigation. Detective Robert Harmon received the case file during the morning briefing. A veteran investigator with the Special Victims Unit, he had developed an intuition for cases that would evolve beyond their seemingly innocuous beginnings. The brass key sat on his desk, unremarkable yet somehow unsettling. Background checks revealed Sarah had no criminal history. A retired high school English teacher, widowed, with 2 adult children living across the country. Nothing suspicious in her financial records, phone logs, or social media. She appeared to be exactly what she claimed, an innocent recipient of something strange. The forensic team found no fingerprints on the key besides Sarah's. The envelope yielded nothing except a generic postmark from the regional distribution center. No DNA, no trace evidence. The key itself was a standard Schlage, available at any hardware store, though well worn and at least several years old. The breakthrough came unexpectedly when Detective Harmon decided to run the key's unique bidding pattern through the department database. A cold case from 7 years prior had documented an identical key pattern belonging to a storage unit where investigators had found blood-stained carpet, cutting tools, and photographs of unidentified women. The original investigation had stalled without sufficient evidence to identify a suspect. Harmon pulled the dusty case files. The detective who had worked the case had since retired. The storage unit had been rented under a false identity, paid in cash. Surveillance footage had long been overwritten. The evidence collected had yielded partial DNA samples, but no matches in any criminal database. The photographs recovered from the storage unit showed 5 different women, all appearing unconscious. Only 3 had been identified during the original investigation, all reported missing but never found. Their cases remained open, classified as suspected homicides without bodies. Sarah Miller recognized none of the women when shown the photographs. She grew increasingly anxious as the investigation proceeded, installing new locks and a security system in her home. The question lingered, why had someone sent her this key? Harmon ordered a fresh analysis of the original evidence using newer techniques. The partial DNA sample was expanded and run through genealogical databases. This yielded a distant familial match, a second cousin twice removed from the suspect. Working backward through family trees, investigators narrowed their focus to Harold Jenkins, who had lived 2 streets away from Sarah Miller until moving away approximately 6 years ago. His current whereabouts were unknown. Further investigation revealed Jenkins had been a substitute teacher at the same school where Sarah taught, though they had minimal documented interaction. His employment records showed scattered work history, long unexplained gaps, and frequent relocations. His former residence yielded nothing unusual upon inspection. Neighbors described him as quiet, unremarkable, someone who kept to himself, the common refrain that often follows revelations about predators hiding in plain sight. The big question remained unanswered: why send the key now? Why to Sarah Miller? Harmon theorized it might be a trophy, a warning, or perhaps a macabre invitation. The search for Jenkins intensified. His driver's license hadn't been renewed, no credit card activity, no tax returns. The digital breadcrumbs people typically leave behind were conspicuously absent, suggesting an intentional effort to remain untraceable. The true horror of the case emerged when authorities investigated a small cabin registered to Jenkins' deceased mother. Beneath the weathered wooden floorboards, investigators discovered a concealed room accessible only through a trapdoor. Inside, meticulously organized shelves held dozens of identical brass keys, each with a name and date engraved on a small attached tag. 5 keys corresponded to the women from the photographs. The remaining keys, 27 in total, presented a horrifying implication of additional victims previously unknown to authorities. Buried behind the cabin, forensic teams recovered human remains. The excavation continued for weeks as investigators unearthed multiple bodies in varying states of decomposition. Sarah received round-the-clock protection as the manhunt for Jenkins expanded nationwide. Behavioral analysts suggested the key represented a twisted invitation, Jenkins selecting Sarah as someone to appreciate his work. The press dubbed him the Key Master, a name that spread rapidly across national headlines. Fear permeated the community as residents questioned how such horror had existed among them undetected. Detection dogs tracked a scent from the cabin into the surrounding wilderness. Search teams combed dense forest areas. Thermal imaging drones scanned terrain too dangerous for ground teams. The manhunt became one of the largest in regional history. A wildlife photographer hiking in remote woods captured an image of someone matching Jenkins' description. The grainy photograph showed a bearded man with hollow eyes carrying a backpack, heading deeper into the wilderness. Authorities closed in on the area, establishing a perimeter. Tactical teams navigated difficult terrain while psychological profilers predicted Jenkins would not surrender. They anticipated he might have prepared for this contingency with hidden supplies and escape routes. The final confrontation occurred when a patrol officer encountered Jenkins attempting to cross a river. Rather than surrender, Jenkins retreated to higher ground, where he barricaded himself in an abandoned fire observation tower. Negotiators attempted communication for hours without response. When tactical teams finally breached the tower, they found Jenkins dead from a self-inflicted wound. Beside his body lay a journal containing detailed accounts of his crimes, alongside a single brass key identical to the one Sarah had received. Inside a waterproof container, investigators discovered additional evidence, including photographs, maps marking burial locations, and personal effects taken from victims, a methodically preserved record of atrocities spanning nearly a decade. The journal's final entry addressed Sarah directly. "You never noticed me, but I noticed everything about you. The key opens nothing because what I wanted to give you cannot be unlocked with metal, only with recognition. Now everyone will remember my name." The subsequent investigation identified 32 victims in total. Families who had spent years wondering about missing loved ones finally received answers, though the closure came with the unbearable weight of confirmed tragedy. Sarah never returned to her home, unable to reconcile the horror that had brushed so close to her ordinary life. The grandfather clock that had mysteriously chimed was examined and found to contain a small wireless receiver Jenkins had been watching, waiting for the moment she received his gift. The case remains one of the most disturbing examples of predatory behavior hiding beneath a veneer of normalcy. Psychological researchers continue studying Jenkins' writings, seeking insights to identify similar offenders before they act. And somewhere in an evidence locker, a collection of brass keys sits in silent testimony to lives cut short, each key opening nothing, yet unlocking a devastating truth about the darkness that sometimes hides behind unremarkable facades. Story 14. In the dimly lit nursery of the Morgan residence, a young woman stood with a paint roller in hand, ready to transform the faded blue walls before her baby's arrival. As she applied the first coat of white paint, a mysterious message began to emerge from beneath the layers, a cryptic warning that sent shivers down her spine. "Don't let it hear you." Her heart raced as she took a step back, only to notice something even more unsettling: tiny handprints in the fresh paint, too high up for any child to have reached. This discovery marked the beginning of what would later be known as the Whispering House case. The Victorian-style home, purchased by the couple at a suspiciously low price, held secrets that no one could have anticipated. Detective Sarah Klein, with a notebook in hand, arrived at the residence to unravel the mystery that had gripped the expectant mother in fear. The woman, her belly swollen with child, recounted the chilling events that had unfolded since they moved in. The previous owners had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a house tainted by an ominous past. Detective Klein, with a sense of unease, stepped through the creaking halls of the historic home, drawn to the nursery where the message still lingered on the wall, a stark reminder of the darkness that lurked within. Delving into the property's history, the detective uncovered a disturbing pattern of short-lived occupants and unsettling reports of children hearing whispers and feeling watched. The house's former owner, Eleanor Blackwood, had a sinister legacy tied to her name, a wealthy widow who ran an orphanage from the very walls that now held secrets of the past. As the investigation deepened, the truth began to surface. Beneath the nursery floor, hidden from sight, lay the remains of 5 children, lost to Eleanor's twisted desires for eternal youth. Their tragic fate revealed through small pendants engraved with their names, a heartbreaking testament to the horrors that had unfolded within those walls. With the case closed and justice served for the victims, the house remained a haunting reminder of the evil that had once resided there. The nursery walls, bearing witness to the suffering of innocents, were demolished in an attempt to erase the past, but the echoes of children's whispers persisted, a chilling presence that refused to be silenced. Detective Klein, haunted by the memories of the case, kept a photograph of the luminol handprints that glowed in the darkness, a ghostly reminder of the lingering spirits that reached out across time and space, seeking solace for the injustice that had befallen them. The house, condemned and forsaken, stood as a silent witness to the unspeakable horrors that lay buried within its walls, a cold case that would forever remain shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions. Story 15. The motel stood there, a relic of a forgotten era, its faded sign barely visible in the dim twilight. It was a place where transient souls sought temporary respite, where shadows whispered tales of the past. The key exchanged hands with a cryptic warning from the clerk, a warning shrouded in mystery. Just avoid the last door on the left. His words lingered in the air like a haunting melody. Intrigue danced in her mind as she ascended the creaking staircase to her room. The hallway stretched before her, a corridor of faded memories and hidden secrets, and there it was, the forbidden door, its handle icy to the touch. To the naked eye it appeared like any other door, blending seamlessly with its companions. But as she pressed her ear against its weathered surface, a faint whisper, a ghostly breath, reached out from the other side. Detective Morgan Reed, a seeker of truths in a world of shadows, entered the room of tragedy. The stench of iron and fear greeted her, a grim reminder of the horrors that lurked beneath the surface of the mundane. The scene unfolded before her like a macabre painting, pristine cleanliness juxtaposed with the macabre tableau of a life extinguished too soon. Amidst the sterile surroundings, the lifeless form of a young woman lay sprawled, her silent gaze fixed upon eternity. Reed knelt beside her, a silent witness to the cruelty that mankind could inflict upon its own. The forensic technician's clinical observations pierced the silence, revealing a grim pattern of death that echoed through the shadows of the night. As the investigation unfurled its dark wings, the tendrils of mystery wrapped themselves around Reed's consciousness. Each clue, each revelation, painted a portrait of a killer driven by motives unknown. The victim's life, a tapestry of secrets and shadows, unraveled before Reed's eyes, beckoning her deeper into the labyrinth of the human soul. Whispers of a predator at large, a shadow stalking the unsuspecting, echoed through the corridors of the city. Reed's relentless pursuit of truth led her down winding paths through alleys of deceit and betrayal. The truth, a fragile thread woven into the fabric of lies, awaited its moment of revelation. The sisters' trembling words unveiled a new chapter in the saga, a man known only as C, a figure shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Reed's gaze turned towards the corporate realm, where facades crumbled like ancient ruins under the weight of truth. Charles Emerson, a man of influence and power, stood at the center of the storm, his mask slipping under Reed's unwavering scrutiny. The web of deceit tightened around Emerson, each thread leading back to the room on the left. The camera's unblinking eye bore witness to his dark deeds, capturing the essence of his twisted desires. The courtroom, a stage for justice's final act, bore witness to the unveiling of a monster in human guise. As Emerson's world crumbled around him, Reed saw beyond the mask of indifference, catching a glimpse of the void that lay within. The absence of remorse, the emptiness of a soul devoid of empathy, chilled her to the core. The trial concluded, a sentence passed, but the echoes of the past lingered in the air, whispering of deeds best left forgotten. The tale of the door on the left echoed through the annals of crime, a cautionary tale of darkness that dwells within the hearts of men. Reed, haunted by the specter of the past, walked the corridors of her own mind, pondering the mysteries that lay hidden behind closed doors. And in the stillness of the evidence locker, the keys to forgotten rooms lay dormant, silent witnesses to the shadows that danced in the night. Story 16. In the stillness of the night, a tale unfolds within the walls of a Victorian-era home, where whispers of the past linger like a haunting melody. Michael and Sarah Klein, unsuspecting new tenants, embarked on a journey of discovery that would unravel a mystery woven into the very fabric of their charming abode. The house, with its ornate woodwork and high ceilings, beckoned the couple with promises of a bygone era steeped in history. Little did they know that beneath the surface of peeling wallpaper lay a story waiting to be unveiled. It began innocently enough, a water stain in the master bedroom catching Sarah's eye, a yellowish hue seeping through the floral patterns. Curiosity led them to peel back the layers, revealing a hidden narrative etched in ink, a name repeated endlessly, Alina Winters, in a frantic, uneven script that spoke of desperation. As they delved deeper into the mystery, the pieces of the puzzle refused to fit neatly together. Alina Winters, a name that held no place in the documented history of the house, led them down a rabbit hole of intrigue and uncertainty. Online searches yielded a single result, a missing persons case from decades past, the face in the photograph hauntingly familiar to that of the woman who had sold them the house. Michael and Sarah's nights were consumed with research and speculation, their home transforming into a nexus of secrets waiting to be unearthed. The more they uncovered, the more the boundaries between past and present blurred, reality merging with a narrative that defied logic. The retired detective's voice crackled over the phone, recounting the cold case of Alina Winters, a disappearance shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions. The walls of the house, once silent witnesses, now echoed with the echoes of a past that refused to stay buried. Forensic teams descended upon the property, peeling back layers of wallpaper, revealing a truth that lay hidden for decades. The ink-stained walls bore witness to a fractured mind, a tale of obsession and tragedy that transcended time. Beneath the floorboards, a hidden space yielded a trove of secrets, a driver's license, identification cards bearing different names, all pointing to a singular truth. Alina Winters and Margaret Cavendish, two identities intertwined in a dance of deception orchestrated by a mind fractured beyond repair. The revelation of Rebecca Eldridge, the psychiatric patient who had assumed Aliner's identity, sent shivers down their spines. A tale of dissociation and desperation unfolded, painting a portrait of a woman consumed by her own delusions. As the excavation of the backyard unearthed long-buried remains, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Aliner Winters, a victim of a twisted game of identity, found justice in the most unexpected of ways. The house, once a sanctuary, now stood as a monument to a tragedy long forgotten, its walls whispering a tale of loss and redemption. Michael and Sarah, unwitting players in a drama beyond their imagining, found solace in the closure brought to a story that had haunted them since their arrival. And as the night settled over the house, a sense of peace descended, the weight of the past lifting like a veil. In the quiet embrace of the Victorian-era home, the echoes of a bygone era faded into the shadows, leaving only the promise of a new dawn, a fresh start in a house where the walls themselves held the secrets of the past. Story 17. At the coffee haunt, he had established a ritual, a fixed table, a standard order, a perpetual quietude. The barista recognized his visage, yet his name remained a mystery to all. Then one day he failed to materialize. The authorities, upon inspecting his customary spot, stumbled upon an abandoned wallet. Within it lay a driver's license bearing a photo, but devoid of any identifying details, no name, no address, just a vacant expanse where his identity should have resided. Upon scrutinizing the surveillance footage, Detective Sarah Mercer found something inexplicable. The man, now dubbed John Doe in the investigative records, appeared ordinary on camera. Of average stature with unassuming features, clad in a navy coat and toting a weathered leather messenger bag, nothing about him stood out, rendering his vanishing act all the more disconcerting. "Replay it," she directed the tech expert. The footage unfolded with John entering the bustling coffee shop during the morning rush. He placed his usual order, black coffee, sans sugar, and settled at the secluded corner table, partially obscured by a decorative plant. Engrossed in writing within a notebook, he intermittently savored his coffee and gazed out the window. Then came the pivotal moment. He set down his wallet, rose, and proceeded towards the restroom corridor. Yet he never retraced his steps back to his table. He never emerged through any exit. He simply evaporated into thin air. "Review the restroom footage," Mercer requested. "Here's the curious part," the specialist responded. "He never entered any restroom. We've analyzed every camera angle. It's as if he dissolved into the ether." Back at the precinct, Mercer meticulously laid out the contents of the wallet on her desk. The license photo aligned with their enigmatic figure, yet the personal particulars were conspicuously absent, replaced by blank voids. The credit cards bore no names, only strings of 16-digit numbers that led to non-existent accounts when cross-referenced in the system. Assorted cash meticulously arranged. A receipt from the coffee shop dated 3 days prior, and a solitary business card blank on both sides except for a faintly printed phone number in gray ink. Upon dialing the number, Mercer encountered silence on the other end, punctuated by the rustling of paper, perhaps the flipping of pages. After 30 seconds, the call abruptly ended. The barista who had served John for years offered scant insight. He seldom spoke, always courteous though, a generous tipper. I believe he may have had a slight accent, but his voice was so soft it was hard to discern. "Did he ever engage with anyone here, hold conversations?" Mercer inquired. "Never." Always solitary, engrossed in writing within that notebook. The notebook lay undisturbed on the table next to the forsaken wallet, its pages brimmed with what seemed to be encoded text or ciphers. Cryptographers from the department grappled with deciphering its contents. Some pages featured sketches, blueprints of edifices that bore no resemblance to any known structures in the vicinity. Mercer dispatched officers to canvass the neighborhood with John Doe's photos. No one could place him. No missing persons reports correlated with his description. His fingerprints eluded every database. It was as though he existed solely within the confines of that coffee shop. During her inquiry, Mercer detected an anomaly in the surveillance footage. Each morning when John entered the establishment, the time stamp on the camera flickered momentarily. The tech expert dismissed it as a mere glitch, yet Mercer harbored doubts. Returning to the coffee shop, she occupied his table. From this vantage point, she could surveil both the entrance and the corridor leading to the restrooms. Suspended between them hung an antique mirror, its ornate frame etched with symbols akin to those in John's notebook. Upon the arrival of the shop proprietor, Mercer interrogated him about the mirror. "That thing, it predates my tenure, came with the establishment. A cumbersome piece requires 2 men to relocate it. Has it ever been shifted for cleaning or redecoration purposes? Not in my time." "Why do you ask?" Mercer approached the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. The glass bore a slight distortion, amplifying the depth of the reflection. Expecting the chill of glass, she encountered an unfamiliar warmth when she touched its surface. The forensics team descended to scrutinize the mirror. Upon detaching it from the wall, they uncovered a diminutive hollow cavity behind it. Nestled within were a stack of identical wallets, each housing a driver's license with the same photo, but void of any personal particulars. Adjacent to them lay a leather-bound journal brimming with entries spanning decades, inscribed in the identical hand as the notebook left on the table. The conclusive entry read, "The experiment must cease. They draw near. The aperture is narrowing." Scattered throughout the concealed space were fingerprints all matching those of John Doe. Radiocarbon dating of the earliest wallet hinted at its age of roughly 50 years, yet the photo portrayed an unaltered countenance. The journal entries chronicled what appeared to be trials in temporal displacement and identity transference. Mentions of transversing back and aperture points littered the pages. One passage seized Mercer's attention. The coffee shop acts as a nexus, a site where realities converge. The mirror serves as the portal. When alignment manifests, passage becomes viable. As the investigation delved deeper, peculiar occurrences unfurled in the vicinity of the coffee shop. Patrons reported witnessing their reflections moving autonomously in the window panes. Several asserted glimpsing John Doe seated at his customary table, though the surveillance cameras depicted no presence. A breakthrough materialized when an elderly woman reached out to the police station regarding the inquiry. Introducing herself as Margaret Keller, a former physicist involved in classified government ventures, she identified John Doe from the media reports. His moniker was Daniel Weston, she elucidated, a brilliant theoretical physicist who vanished during his involvement in an experimental endeavor revolving around quantum mirror surfaces with the potential to facilitate matter transference between parallel realms. Keller proffered documentation substantiating Weston's presumed demise following a laboratory mishap. The date of his disappearance aligned with the earliest entry in the journal unearthed behind the mirror. He posited that our existence is merely one among myriad concurrent realities, Keller elaborated. He hypothesized that certain locales function as frail points between these realms, locales where an individual could potentially traverse. Armed with this new revelation, Mercer revisited the coffee shop. She unearthed that the edifice stood on grounds previously occupied by the research facility where Weston twalled. The coffee shop had been erected directly atop the laboratory where he evaporated. The culmination of the case came when Mercer, reviewing the surveillance footage alone late one night, discerned an overlooked detail on the recordings. Reflected in the mirror, a duplicate of John Doe Daniel Weston observed himself seated at the table. 2 iterations of the same man coexisting simultaneously. Hastening to the coffee shop to re-inspect the mirror, Mercer encountered it shattered on the floor. Amidst the debris lay a final missive inscribed in the familiar hand. The trial is finalized. The portal is sealed. Do not endeavor to pursue. The enigma of the Phantom Man lingers, officially unresolved. Shortly after the investigation, the coffee shop shuttered its doors, eventually succumbing to demolition. Daniel Weston's remains remain undiscovered. His notebooks and journals vanished from the evidence chamber under enigmatic circumstances. Detective Mercer relinquished her post not long after. Residents sporadically glimpse her perched on her veranda, feverishly transcribing within a notebook akin to Weston's. Adorning her wall hangs a fragment of an antique mirror, its facade at times rippling when unobserved. Story 18, the aged envelope with its yellowed edges bore a fresh stamp, as if just dispatched days ago. Gently the detective unfolded it, revealing a single sheet of paper. The message, hastily typed in an uneven font, read, "I am sorry for what I did." The paper felt damp, carrying a faint scent of iron. A reddish smear along the bottom edge caught their attention, not ink but human blood. Detective Sarah Morgan, with practiced precision, placed the letter in an evidence bag, her gloved fingers careful. The forensics team confirmed her suspicion the blood matched DNA from an unsolved homicide case that had plagued the department for years. The victim, a young journalist named Rebecca Warren, had been found in her apartment, brutally stabbed. Her laptop missing, notes scattered, hinting that her death might be linked to a story she was investigating. Despite countless interviews and exhaustive investigations, the case had gone cold until this mysterious letter arrived at the police department, addressed simply to Homicide Division. Few fingerprints on the paper and envelope, only smudges hinting at gloved hands. The postmark provided a rare light after months of stagnation. Morgan gathered her team in the briefing room, the walls adorned with crime scene photos and suspect profiles that led nowhere. Pinning the letter's image at the board center, she announced, "This changes everything. Our killer shows remorse." Detective James Chen, Morgan's longtime partner in the case, studied the letter thoughtfully. "Or perhaps they want us to believe they do," he countered. The blood could be a theatrical touch, a taunt. The unique typewriter impression patterns led the forensics team to a model out of production for decades, rare yet not unattainable. They reached out to antique shops and collectors across the region, gaining momentum in the investigation. Delving into Rebecca's life, they discovered her dedication to uncovering corruption, especially in her latest assignment involving a wealthy family entangled in local politics. The family's patriarch's recent passing had left behind a contentious will, fueling suspicions among siblings of manipulation. Rebecca's boyfriend, Michael Barnes, once bereaved and with a solid alibi, now displayed subtle signs of unease as the evidence emerged. During a new interview, he confessed, "Rebecca mentioned she was being followed. I dismissed it as paranoia due to her investigation. I should have paid more attention." As the detectives explored this light, a second letter arrived, bearing the same typewriter and blood, this time with a longer message. She knew too much about the family, the inheritance, what happened to the old man. It wasn't meant to go that far. The trail led to the mansion of the deceased patriarch, where they interrogated the eldest son, Richard, owner of vintage typewriters. His responses seemed rehearsed, too smooth to be genuine. A breakthrough occurred when microscopic fibers on the envelopes matched custom stationery belonging to the family's youngest daughter, Alina. Questioned, Alina revealed Richard's request to use her stationery a month before. A search of Richard's home uncovered a hidden room with incriminating evidence, a vintage typewriter matching the letters, Rebecca's blood, and surveillance materials. Unexpectedly, bank records unveiled significant payments from Richard to Michael prior to Rebecca's murder. When confronted, Michael confessed, she found proof that Richard poisoned his father for his inheritance. I informed Richard, hoping to scare her off, not knowing he would go that far. Elena provided a crucial recording capturing Richard and Michael plotting against Rebecca. Richard's arrest ensued while attempting to escape. The prosecution built a solid case around the letters, typewriter, finances, and Elena's recording. Michael cooperated in exchange for a plea deal. Throughout the trial, Richard maintained his innocence, blaming Michael for framing him. Nonetheless, the overwhelming evidence led to a swift guilty verdict from the jury. As Richard was led away, handcuffed, Detective Morgan approached Rebecca's parents in the courtroom, offering a silent solace. Though words couldn't bring their daughter back, the conviction provided a semblance of closure. The blood-stained letters remained in evidence, a stark reminder that even meticulously planned crimes leave traces. Remorse, whether sincere or strategic, can unravel those who believe they've executed a flawless murder. Rebecca Warren's case became a pivotal lesson in detective training, emphasizing that breakthroughs can arise from the most unexpected sources: a vintage typewriter and the burden of guilt weighing on a killer's conscience. Story 19. In the quiet of the night, a faint flicker danced across the screen of the baby monitor, a mere blip, easily dismissed as a glitch in the system. The mother, Rebecca, barely registered it at first, attributing it to interference in the wireless feed. But then the crackling static filled the room, and a soft, eerie voice whispered, "SHHH, go back to sleep." A chill crept down her spine, her heart quickening with a sense of dread she couldn't shake. Racing to her son's room, panic gripping her chest, Rebecca found the crib empty, the room bathed in moonlight. The window was securely shut, the door still locked from the inside. The only anomaly was the plush rabbit lying abandoned on the floor, its unblinking black eyes seeming to watch her every move. In a frenzy of fear and disbelief, Rebecca's screams pierced the night, echoing through the walls until her voice grew hoarse. The neighbors, stirred by her distress, dialed emergency services, their concern mounting with each passing second. When the authorities arrived, they discovered Rebecca huddled on the nursery floor, clutching the stuffed rabbit, her world shattered by the inexplicable disappearance of her 4-month-old son, Samuel. The investigation that followed was shrouded in mystery. There were no signs of forced entry, no alarms triggered, no clues left behind. The baby monitor footage revealed nothing but the haunting voice and static that had unsettled Rebecca to her core. How could someone enter a locked home, snatch a child, and vanish without a trace, leaving only a haunting whisper in their wake? Suspicion fell heavily upon Rebecca, her fragile state of mind under scrutiny. Her husband Daniel had been away on business, their strained marriage and her history of postpartum depression casting a shadow of doubt upon her. As the whispers of the community painted her as the villain in her own tragedy, Rebecca stood alone in her grief, grappling with the accusations that threatened to consume her. But then a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness. Forensic analysis uncovered microscopic fibers on the nursery windowsill, foreign to the household, a clue that hinted at an intruder's unconventional entry. The focus shifted to an outsider, a shadowy figure captured in the surveillance footage, a skilled climber with a secretive agenda. Daniel returned to a storm of accusations, his hands betraying the truth in their calloused skin, his hobbies revealing a hidden side. Financial records painted a damning picture, his actions leading to a shocking revelation of a second life, a hidden family, and a web of deceit that threatened to unravel everything. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the baby monitor emerged as a key player in the twisted game. Hacked and manipulated, it had been used to orchestrate a nefarious plan, leading investigators to a chilling discovery in a dimly lit basement, a reunion tainted by betrayal and loss. Samuel, miraculously found alive, was in the arms of a woman named Elaine, whose vacant gaze hinted at a past consumed by grief and desperation. Through a tangled web of connections, the truth unfurled, exposing a sinister plot orchestrated by Daniel and his first wife, Elaine, driven by greed, obsession, and a thirst for retribution. In the courtroom, as the evidence unfolded, the whispers of that fateful night echoed through the halls, revealing the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. Daniel's cough, a damning echo from the past, sealed their fate as the jury delivered justice in swift and resounding verdicts. Rebecca and Samuel, scarred but resilient, sought solace in a new beginning, far from the shadows of their past. The baby monitor, a silent witness to their ordeal, remained a silent sentinel of a truth that defied explanation, a reminder of the fragility of innocence and the depths of human depravity. Story 20: The Enigmatic House. She entered through the creaking front door, the dust dancing in the stagnant air around her. The abandoned house had stood frozen in time, its peeling walls and draped furniture telling stories of neglect. But amidst the stillness, there was a peculiar mystery that beckoned her deeper. Each door she opened led her back to the same room, the parlor, with its antique furnishings frozen in time. No matter which path she chose, she found herself trapped in an endless loop, a maze with no exit except the way she came in. And when she turned to leave, the front door had vanished into thin air, leaving her stranded in this enigmatic place. The discovery of Morgan Pierce's lifeless body had transformed the once forgotten Victorian house into a chilling crime scene. Detective Sarah Lind stood at the threshold, observing the scene with a sense of unease as forensic experts moved silently through the dimly lit rooms like specters. The house had gained a reputation among the locals, a place where compasses spun aimlessly and whispers of unseen watchers lingered in the air. But now it held secrets far darker than mere superstitions. The medical examiner's hushed voice broke the silence, revealing that Morgan had passed away 3 days prior, her cause of death determined to be asphyxiation. She was found seated in a chair in the parlor, her demeanor serene as if awaiting a long-lost guest, no signs of struggle marring her peaceful expression. Questions loomed in the air as Lind delved into the investigation. It was a real estate agent showing the property who stumbled upon Morgan's still form, mistaking her for a trespasser until a closer look revealed the truth. The house had remained empty since the passing of its previous owner, Eleanor Blackwood, leaving it to decay in solitude. Morgan, a young scholar with a passion for architectural anomalies, had been drawn to the house's enigmatic reputation. Her journal entries spoke of strange phenomena, whispers in the walls, shifting doorways, and chilling cold spots that defied explanation. She was on a quest to unravel the mysteries that lay hidden within the walls of the Victorian relic. As the investigation unfolded, a tangled web of connections emerged. Conversations on Morgan's phone hinted at a secretive bond with someone who shared her fascination with the house, someone who spoke of the dwelling as if it held ancient truths waiting to be uncovered. Adam Reeves, an expert in architectural history, emerged as a pivotal figure in Morgan's quest for answers. Their correspondence hinted at a shared belief in something beyond mere optical illusions, a deeper truth lurking within the deceptive design of the house. But as alibis were checked and clues unraveled, a haunting revelation surfaced from the shadows of the past. Eleanor Blackwood's grandson unveiled a family secret buried for generations, the house's dark history of claiming lives, drawing them into its insidious influence with each passing generation. A hidden chamber behind the parlor fireplace unveiled a trove of ancient artifacts, each imbued with a power that transcended time and space. Among them, a deity figurine symbolizing the liminal spaces between worlds, its presence hinting at forces far beyond the realm of human understanding. The investigation took a sinister turn when Adam Reeves was discovered lifeless in his own home, mirroring Morgan's fate with traces of the mysterious alkaloid in his system. Clutched in his hand was a key that unlocked the hidden compartment in the Victorian house, a key to secrets that lay beyond mortal comprehension. In his final message to himself, Reeves spoke of the house's true nature, a place that ensnared not the body, but the mind, distorting perceptions and trapping those who dared to delve too deeply into its mysteries. As the case remained unresolved, shrouded in suspicion and unanswered questions, the condemned Victorian house stood as a silent sentinel to its own enigma. Whispers of spectral lights and vanishing visitors haunted the nights, tales of those who had dared to uncover the truth and paid the ultimate price. Some believed the house was a malevolent force claiming those who delved too deeply into its secrets, while others saw it as a gateway to realms beyond comprehension. The truth remained elusive, like a shadow slipping through grasping fingers in a house where all doors led back to the beginning, trapping those who dared to seek what lay beyond. Story 21. The ancient box lay hidden beneath layers of clutter in the attic, a silent witness to the passage of time and neglect. Within its dusty confines rested faded memories captured on Polaroids, snapshots of joyous occasions and family bonds, harmless images of bygone days until she stumbled upon the final photograph. It depicted her very own living room, the familiar couch, the draping curtains, yet the faces staring back at her were strangers. And amidst them, barely discernible in the shadows, stood a figure, a man, watching. A shiver traced its way up Rebecca's spine as she scrutinized the eerie image. Her fingers quivered, setting the edges of the photograph abuzz. The family in the picture, a woman with golden locks, a bespectacled man, and two children beamed at the camera, oblivious to the looming presence behind them. Their smiles frozen in time, while peril lurked in the background. Carrying the photo down the creaking wooden stairs, Rebecca felt the weight of the house pressing down on her, the vast emptiness suffocating her spirit. Placing the photograph on the sterile kitchen counter, she illuminated it under the harsh glare of fluorescent light. The resemblance between her home and these unknown faces was uncanny. The archway, the ornate molding, the bay window that bathed the room in morning light. This was her sanctuary, yet these intruders had made it their own. The arrival of Detective Morgan, clad in a worn leather jacket that whispered of past investigations, heralded the beginning of a quest for answers. His keen eyes, missing nothing, methodically examined the photograph, flipping it over to reveal a blank back. "What do you know of the Nelsons who sold you this house?" His voice rumbled low. "Almost nothing," confessed Rebecca. "They had already moved away when I purchased it." Morgan's inscrutable expression masked his thoughts as he requested to borrow the photo for further scrutiny by his team. The investigation unfolded quietly, tracing the lineage of occupants back through time. The Nelsons had acquired the house from the Crawfords, who in turn had succeeded the Mornos. Detective Morgan unraveled a pattern, families vanishing without a trace after precisely 1 year of residence. The breakthrough arrived unexpectedly when a former mail carrier identified the smiling strangers in the photograph as the enigmatic Sutherlands, who had vanished mysteriously, leaving no trace. Forensic analysis dated the photograph to 15 years prior, unveiling telltale signs of manipulation, a staged composition, a lurking figure in the shadows. Who was this silent observer, and what sinister purpose did he serve? Enhanced imaging shed light on the shadowy figure, a tall male presence cloaked in darkness, his intentions veiled yet palpable. Detective Morgan uncovered a thread connecting the disappearances to the original architect of the house, Samuel Whitfield, a man of secrets and shadows. Samuel's spectral presence loomed large over the investigation, his fate intertwined with the house he had built. Beneath the concrete floor of the basement, a macabre revelation awaited the preserved remains of the missing families, entombed in the earth, alongside a camera that had captured their unknowing smiles. The house transformed into a crime scene, sealing off its horrors from the world. A hidden crawlspace in the attic unveiled a chilling tableau, an abandoned cot, a trove of photographs, and a journal chronicling the watcher's sinister observations. The final entry, a harbinger of dread, hinted at impending doom for the unsuspecting new resident. Rebecca sought refuge in a hotel, shielded by police guardianship, yet the specter of Samuel Whitfield haunted her dreams. A mysterious phone call in the dead of night, the ominous click of a camera, echoed through the darkness, a reminder of lurking danger. The enigma of Samuel Whitfield remained unsolved, his legacy a stain on the house that bore his name. Investigators grappled with his elusive trail, debating his true fate. Was he a phantom of the past, or a shadow waiting to strike anew? As the house stood silent and vacant, its secrets whispered through the empty halls. A chilling certainty clung to the air. Those who dared to uncover the truth found themselves ensnared in a web of darkness, their every move observed by unseen eyes. And in the hushed confines of a hidden room, photographs developed, capturing new families, new homes, new victims. The only certainty amidst the shadows was that the gaze of the watcher lingered, a silent sentinel in the night, awaiting the next chapter of his sinister tale. Story 22. She never fancied venturing up there, but when the storm caused a leak in the roof, she had no choice. The attic was a realm of forgotten treasures, shrouded in dust and cobwebs. Nestled in the shadowy corner rested an ancient dollhouse, intricately detailed, its miniature furnishings meticulously arranged. However, as she peered into its tiny rooms, a sense of unease crept over her. The figures within were not mere dolls, but tiny, handcrafted replicas of her own kin. Each miniature person placed exactly where they sat in the rooms below, except for one glaring anomaly. The figure meant to represent her stood by the attic entrance. Rebecca Morgan traced her finger along the dollhouse roof, feeling the indent where the tiny wooden figure stood. The revelation sent a shiver down her spine, unrelated to the icy draft whispering through the rafters. This dollhouse had no place in her life. This wasn't her childhood abode, but a rental dwelling her family had recently moved into. The saga unfurled with Rebecca's frantic call to law enforcement. Officers arrived at the suburban abode to find a family fraught with distress, clustered in the living space, adamantly refusing to ascend the stairs. The lead investigator, Detective Sarah Harmon, initially dismissed their anxieties as an elaborate hoax or perhaps the product of vivid imaginations adjusting to an unfamiliar environment. The meticulousness struck me, Detective Harmon recounted in later interviews. Each tiny figurine captured a unique trait of every family member: the father's receding hairline, the son's favorite hoodie, even the mother's small birthmark. The course of inquiry altered when forensic specialists unearthed fingerprints on the dollhouse that did not match any family member. Even more disconcerting were microscopic cameras found discreetly nestled in the eyes of each miniature figure, all linked to a sophisticated recording system concealed beneath the dollhouse. Examination of the Morgan family's activities in the days prior unveiled an unsettling revelation. The positions of the miniature figures in the dollhouse not only mirrored the family's seating arrangement that evening, but also replicated exact postures from different days, indicating someone had been observing them long enough to learn their routines. We soon realized this was no ordinary case of surveillance, elucidated Detective Harmon. The culprit exhibited a level of fixation seldom seen in criminal psychology. A concealed entrance to the basement emerged, camouflaged behind a false pantry wall. Inside, investigators stumbled upon a makeshift living quarters, replete with evidence of an individual residing there before the Morgans' arrival. Discarded food wrappers, water bottles, and a sleeping bag hinted that the intruder had been dwelling beneath the family for weeks. The absence of forced entry perplexed investigators. Property records divulged that the house had remained uninhabited for nearly a year before the Morgans' occupancy. The previous owners, an elderly couple, had passed away within close succession. Their son had overseen the estate sale and subsequent rental of the property. Interviews with neighbors proved unfruitful, with one elderly lady mentioning sporadic lights in the vacant house. I assumed it was the real estate folks showcasing the property, she recounted to investigators. Never did I suspect someone might be squatting there without permission. A breakthrough emerged through digital forensics. Analysis of the surveillance network connected to the miniature cameras led investigators to an external server via an IP address. The trail directed them to a modest apartment across town. Inside, walls adorned with photographs of the Morgan family and past occupants of the house greeted them. Journal entries meticulously chronicled the daily routines of each family member with unsettling accuracy. The most chilling discovery awaited in a workshop filled with numerous half-finished dollhouses, each representing distinct homes in the vicinity. The apartment belonged to Martin Wells, the son of the former homeowners. Financial records unveiled mounting debts following his parents' demise. Instead of selling the house outright, he had established the covert living space, persisting in his clandestine habitation while collecting rent from unsuspecting tenants. The dollhouse served as his command center, expounded the forensic psychologist assigned to the case. Each miniature figure symbolized someone under his surveillance. The figure of Rebecca by the attic entrance wasn't a threat, it was his acknowledgement of her discovery of his spying apparatus. During interrogation, Wells remained eerily composed as he elucidated his motives. They resided in my home, slumbered in my parents' chamber. I needed assurance they treated it with reverence. When probed about the positioned figures, he tersely remarked, I desired them to recognize my constant observation. Psychological evaluation unveiled a convoluted case of possessive delusion. Wells grappled with the emotional fallout of losing his childhood abode and devised an intricate system to retain dominion over it. The dollhouse metamorphosed into his conduit to possess both the property and its inhabitants. The Morgan family never set foot in the house again. Rebecca later reminisced that the most haunting moment wasn't discovering the dollhouse, but comprehending its implications. Someone had been surveilling us all along, quantifying our existence, transforming us into mere pawns. The genuine horror lay not in the dollhouse itself, but in realizing that, in his eyes, we were mere playthings to be manipulated and observed. Wells faced multiple charges of stalking, invasion of privacy, illicit surveillance, and unlawful entry. The case triggered a reevaluation of real estate disclosure laws concerning deaths on properties and the responsibility of agents to ensure proper vacating of homes before new occupants arrive. During sentencing, the judge highlighted the profound violation the Morgan family endured. You didn't just encroach upon their dwelling, you violated their sense of sanctuary and self-governance. You scrutinized their intimate moments and replicated them for your gratification. What baffles criminologists about this case is how Longwells might have operated unnoticed had Rebecca not unearthed the dollhouse. Scrutiny of his journals suggested he had surreptitiously resided in homes for nearly 2 years, transitioning from one property to the next, crafting dollhouses for each observed family. The Morgan family eventually found solace in a distant abode, yet Rebecca confessed in her victim impact statement that she still inspects closets and hidden spaces routinely. She eradicated all dollhouses and miniatures from their new abode. At times, I still sense a lingering gaze upon me, she expressed. I ponder if somewhere, someone still orchestrates a miniature version of me in a dollhouse I've yet to uncover. Story 23. Renovations always bring to light peculiar discoveries, old newspapers, shattered trinkets, faded photographs. But when Sarah and Michael decided to uplift the floorboards of their newly acquired Victorian-era home, they stumbled upon a neatly folded letter hidden beneath the wood. The paper, fragile and worn, bore a cryptic message: "Don't trust the one who knocked." Before they could process the unsettling find, 3 sharp knocks reverberated through the silent house, sending shivers down their spines. The couple had been charmed by the home's intricate moldings and rich history when they purchased it at an estate auction. Little did they anticipate that their renovation project would unearth such a disquieting mystery. Detective Alina Reed arrived at the scene, her partner by her side, the exposed floorboards revealing a dark void underneath. With weathered hands marked by years of handling evidence, she carefully retrieved the note using gloved fingers, aware of the unavoidable contamination caused by the couple's touch. As Sarah and Michael recounted the eerie knocking sound, Reed observed the genuine fear etched on their faces. Background checks on the couple revealed nothing amiss newlyweds with good credit and stable jobs. However, the house harbored a complex history. Previously owned by the Hargrove family for generations, it had remained empty for 2 years following the passing of the last resident, Margaret Hargrove, an elderly widow known for her solitary life. Despite no red flags in her death deemed as natural causes by the coroner, there lingered an unsettling aura. Forensic analysis dated the mysterious note back approximately 2 decades. The handwriting bore traces of distress, suggesting fear or urgency. Margaret would have been in her 60s at the time, residing with her late husband, Franklin. Reed delved deeper into the investigation, scouring county records and interviewing acquaintances of the Hargroves. Franklin, a retired teacher admired in the community for his woodworking skills, left behind several handcrafted pieces in the house. A former student of Franklin's recalled his final years marked by paranoia, hinting at someone watching him. It was perceived as early signs of dementia by many. The pivotal breakthrough occurred during Reed's interview with Margaret's sister, now residing in a nursing home. Despite her fading memory, she whispered, Margaret feared him towards the end, not Franklin, but the man who knocked, the collector. Intrigued, Reed probed further, uncovering a tale of debt and desperation. Franklin's gambling debts had attracted the attention of Victor Mercer, a notorious loan shark and collector for an illicit gambling ring. Franklin's refusal to sell the house to settle the debts had dire consequences. The truth emerged as the forensic team unearthed a male skeleton with fractured skull under the foundation, identified as Victor Mercer through dental records. Margaret's diaries, concealed in the attic, shed light on the harrowing events. Franklin's confrontation with Mercer turned fatal, leading to a grim cover-up. The haunting note served as a stark warning. Margaret's complicity stemmed from fear and loyalty, not malice. Her diaries chronicled the torment she endured in silence, haunted by phantom knocks and the fear of exposure. With the case closed, justice belatedly served, the remains of Victor Mercer were returned to his family. Sarah and Michael, unable to bear the weight of the house's dark past, sold it, leaving the renovations unfinished. Local whispers speak of spectral knocks in the stillness of the night, hinting at unresolved mysteries. The note, preserved in evidence storage, bears a chilling reminder: don't trust the one who knocked. Margaret's cryptic warning lingers, leaving unanswered questions about the true malevolence that lurked within their home. Detective Reed concluded in her final report that some enigmas defy resolution, casting a shadow of doubt even when the truth appears unveiled. Story 24. The old Polaroid held memories of a forgotten birthday, captured in fading hues of smiles and flickering candles. Among the familiar faces, a hidden presence lurked in the background, a man shrouded in mystery and shadow, standing just beyond the reach of light. He did not belong to the family, yet there he was, drawing closer with each passing photo. Sarah Winters stumbled upon the unsettling collection while clearing out her mother's attic after the funeral. A simple cardboard box labeled Memories unveiled a trove of photographs from her childhood, promising glimpses of happier times. But what she found within became the gateway to a haunting nightmare. In the initial photo, the figure was barely discernible, a dark silhouette lingering at the periphery during her 7th birthday celebration. Subsequent images revealed his progression, moving from the edges to the heart of the gatherings, unnoticed by those captured in the frames. Sarah's unease grew as she pieced together the chilling narrative. Desperate for answers, she reached out to her father, his voice betraying a hint of fear at the mention of the mysterious man in the background. Together, they scrutinized the images, seeking to unravel the enigma that had infiltrated their cherished memories. Detective Marcus Reed became entwined in the eerie tale as Sarah presented the evidence, the patter of rain against the windows adding a surreal backdrop to their investigation. With a keen eye and a steely resolve, Reed delved into the progression of the shadowy figure, his movements calculated and ominous. Despite exhaustive inquiries and technological aids, the man remained elusive, a phantom haunting the edges of countless family gatherings. His presence defied logic and reason, a silent specter binding disparate events across the years. A breakthrough came in the form of enhanced images, revealing telltale marks and features that led to a chilling revelation. The shadow in the photographs bore a connection to Robert Keller, a long-missing maintenance worker implicated in unsolved child abductions from years past. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a grim truth emerged, a truth buried beneath layers of time and deception. Keller's dark legacy intertwined with Sarah's own history, casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over her once cherished memories. The excavation of Keller's past unearthed long-buried secrets, connecting him to a trail of disappearances that spanned decades. His presence in the photographs marked a sinister trail of devastation, leaving behind a legacy of horror and loss. Alone in her thoughts, Sarah grappled with the weight of the revelations, the flickering candles in the final birthday photo casting a solemn glow on the faces of her family. The figure in the background lingered, a silent sentinel of darkness finally brought into the harsh light of justice. As the truth unfolded, families found closure in knowing the fate of their missing loved ones, though the answers offered little solace in the face of tragedy. The shadow in the family photos had been unmasked, his hidden presence laid bare for all to see, a reminder of the unseen dangers that lurk within the confines of captured moments, waiting to be revealed. Story 25. The story of the mysterious mask began in a quaint costume shop, its shelves filled with remnants of the past. A woman, drawn to a mask with delicate yet eerily lifelike features, decided to take it home after a strange encounter with the cashier. The mask, devoid of any identifying tag, carried an enigmatic presence that would soon disrupt the tranquil life of Catherine Reed. One fateful night, a soft, rustling sound stirred Catherine from her slumber. As she opened her eyes, she found the mask perched on her nightstand, its gaze fixed upon her. The unsettling sight sent shivers down her spine, but little did she know that this encounter marked the beginning of a chilling tale that would echo through the corridors of time. Catherine's neighbor stumbled upon a chilling scene the next morning. The morning light spilled into her home, illuminating a haunting sight: the lifeless form of Catherine lying on the bedroom floor, the mysterious mask nowhere to be found. Detective Morgan arrived at the scene, her keen eyes scanning the room for clues amidst the hushed tones of the investigators. The investigation unfolded with eerie revelations. The medical examiner puzzled over Catherine's death, noting the frozen expression of terror etched on her features. A trail of enigmatic fibers found on her fingertips hinted at a struggle with an unseen force, a force that seemed to lurk within the shadows of the ancient mask. The origins of the mask led the detective down a dark path, intertwined with a series of unsolved deaths spanning decades. Each victim had fallen prey to the insidious connection between the masks and a ritual of soul transference, a malevolent force seeking new hosts with each passing cycle. An unexpected breakthrough came in the form of Catherine's journal, a testament to her desperate attempts to unravel the mysteries surrounding the mask. Her final words spoke of the mask's sinister nature, its relentless pursuit of a new vessel to inhabit, a cycle of death and terror that transcended time itself. Surveillance footage unveiled a chilling truth: a figure cloaked in darkness, donning the mask, moving with a mechanical precision that mirrored Catherine's own movements. The chilling realization dawned upon the detective: the mask was not just an object, but a vessel of ancient power, hungry for the essence of those who dared to gaze into its empty eyes. As the investigation unfolded, the mask vanished once more, only to resurface in a distant vintage shop. The cycle continued, a relentless dance of death and fear that eluded the grasp of justice. The detective, haunted by the echoes of Catherine's fate, kept her journal close, a reminder of the darkness that lurked beyond the realm of reason. And so the mask lingers in the shadows, waiting to be found by another unsuspecting soul, its hunger unabated, its purpose inscrutable. As the night falls and the world drifts into slumber, beware the soft sound of movement in the dark, for the mask may be closer than you think, its empty gaze fixed upon you, a harbinger of a fate intertwined with ancient forces beyond human comprehension. Story 26. The Enigma of Rebecca Thorne. She cleared the mist from the mirror, her gaze fixed on the reflection staring back at her. Yet in that familiar image, a subtle discord lingered. Her features appeared unchanged, her attire unaltered. But an unsettling feeling crept in as she continued to peer, a shadow of doubt growing with each passing moment, a flicker caught in the periphery of her vision, a motion not of her own making. And as she turned away, the reflection remained unmoving, observing. Thus began the enigmatic tale of Rebecca Thorne, shrouded in mystery from that eerie encounter in her bathroom. What unfolded would baffle investigators and cast a haunting veil over the community for years to come. Rebecca inhabited a solitary existence in a modest abode nestled within a tranquil suburban enclave. Known to acquaintances as methodical and reserved, she traversed life with a penchant for solitude, though maintaining amiable relations with her neighbors. Her occupation as a data analyst for a mid-sized firm delineated her days with rigor and precision. There existed no hint in her demeanor to suggest she would emerge as the focal point of one of the most bewildering criminal inquiries in recent memory. The initial peculiarities seemed innocuous. Trifling objects within her dwelling subtly shifted, no items missing, merely rearranged. A coffee cup perched on a different shelf, books realigned on the shelves, her toothbrush resting on the opposite side of the sink. These anomalies were brushed off as lapses of absent-mindedness, attributed to prolonged hours under sterile lights, poring over endless spreadsheets until her vision blurred. Detective Marion Shaw was first apprised of the situation when Rebecca, after enduring weeks of these disturbances, at last reached out to the authorities. The preliminary assessment pointed to nothing criminal, hinting at a potential matter for mental health services rather than law enforcement. Shaw duly noted the complaint but consigned it to the array of non-urgent cases. There was no tangible evidence, Shaw later testified. No signs of forced entry, no missing possessions. Merely a woman besieged by a sense of disquiet in her own dwelling. The pivotal moment arrived with the incident involving the bathroom mirror. During her subsequent interaction with the police, Rebecca recounted the episode in vivid detail, how her reflection appeared to move autonomously, how an unseen gaze lingered even in solitude. This time she presented proof, footage from a security camera she had installed, trained on her front entrance. The recording unveiled a revelation that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned officers. The grainy video depicted Rebecca departing for work in the morning, only to witness another figure identical to her using a key to access her residence 20 minutes later. Forensic analysts scrutinized the footage for any signs of manipulation or tampering, yet their search yielded naught. The intruder mirrored Rebecca's movements, attire, and even carried her distinctive leather bag. However, the time-stamped records from her workplace security system indicated that Rebecca had already swiped into her office building across town. "We are facing a doppelganger scenario," Detective Shaw informed her superior. "Someone who has meticulously studied Ms. Thorne and can replicate her with uncanny precision." The investigation surged forth. Fingerprints found throughout the premises matched solely with Rebecca's. No foreign genetic material surfaced. Neighbors attested to witnessing nothing unusual, merely Rebecca's habitual comings and goings. Mrs. Keller, a neighbor, recounted a peculiar incident where she greeted Rebecca upon her return one evening, receiving no response, a deviation from her usual comportment but not deemed alarming. Rebecca commenced documenting these disturbances in a journal. Minor alterations within her abode began to proliferate. Unaccounted for food vanished from her fridge. Her computer displayed searches she had not initiated. Most disconcerting were the photographs discovered on her phone, self-portraits resembling her, yet taken without her knowledge. In some images, her countenance bore a subtle dissonance, the grin too wide, the gaze too penetrating. "I feel as though I am descending into madness," she confided to Detective Shaw during their third meeting. "Or perhaps someone is orchestrating this delusion within me." A breakthrough emerged when investigators discerned a pattern within the security footage. The doppelganger only infiltrated her domicile when Rebecca ventured out for specific engagements, therapy sessions, yoga classes, Sunday morning grocery runs, activities predetermined with anticipated durations. "An individual well acquainted with your routine," Shaw expounded. This is not haphazard. This is a calculated surveillance and infiltration. A forensic psychologist postulated that they grappled with a fixation case, an individual fixated on assuming Rebecca's identity, assimilating her existence, perhaps eventually supplanting her entirely. Though infrequent, such instances were chronicled within psychological literature. The perpetrator oftentimes suffered a psychological rupture, fixating on a target embodying qualities they coveted: stability, allure, triumph, normalcy. The inquiry narrowed its focus when Rebecca mentioned a former colleague, Lily Winters, who had been terminated following a surge of erratic conduct. Lily had collaborated closely with Rebecca, frequently remarking on their resemblances. Following her dismissal, she forwarded a series of unsettling emails to Rebecca. One missive read, "We could be mirror images," while another conveyed, "At times, I feel more like you than you do." Detective Shaw secured a warrant to scour Lily's dwelling. What they unearthed transmuted the case from the eerie to the macabre. A chamber within Lily's residence had been transformed into a shrine-like replica of Rebecca's bedroom. The walls adorned with photographs, countless snapshots of Rebecca entering her abode, shopping, socializing, all clandestinely captured. A wardrobe harbored precise duplicates of Rebecca's attire. Cosmetics mirroring Rebecca's preferred brands adorned a vanity, accompanied by meticulous notes detailing her mannerisms, speech patterns, and daily routines. Most damning were the practice videos. Lily had documented herself mimicking Rebecca's gait, gestures, and expressions. The progression was stark: initial attempts clumsy and blatant, later iterations nearly indiscernible from the genuine Rebecca. "She aspired to embody me," Rebecca murmured upon viewing the evidence. "She was not merely imitating me, she was erasing me." Forensic technicians stumbled upon sophisticated apparatus for fabricating duplicate keys and replicating electronic access cards. Lily had upheld an intricate system for monitoring Rebecca's movements, including a calendar forecasting her agenda in minute detail. The ultimate aim behind Lily's machinations eluded investigators. Journals seized from her abode contained rambling entries vacillating between the first and third person, at times alluding to Rebecca as both me and her within the same passage. The final entry sent a chill down their spines. "Soon, only one of us will remain. The stronger entity shall endure." Upon the authorities' endeavor to apprehend Lily, she had vanished without a trace. Her habitation bore signs of abrupt departure: drawers left ajar, certain equipment absent. A nationwide alert was disseminated. Rebecca was ushered into protective custody, relocated to a fortified refuge under constant surveillance. For 3 weeks, every locale associated with her former life underwent vigilant monitoring. Yet Lily failed to manifest. The saga took a disquieting turn when a security guard at Rebecca's previous workplace made an unsettling report. Rebecca was sighted entering the edifice despite being on sabbatical. Surveillance footage corroborated the account. A figure mirroring Rebecca utilized a valid identification card to access the premises, proceeded to her former cubicle, and pored over her documents for 40 minutes before departing. Meanwhile, the real Rebecca resided in seclusion at a secure sanctuary, rendering her presence at the office implausible. The implications crystallized. Lily had not absconded, she had executed her gambit. She now inhabited Rebecca's life, usurping her identity while the authentic Rebecca remained concealed. The case lingers unresolved. Lily Winters remains at large. Rebecca Thorne never reclaimed her former existence, opting to forge a new persona in an undisclosed location. Detective Shaw maintains a photograph on her desk, a depiction of 2 eerily similar women. One embodies Rebecca Thorne, the other embodies Lily Winters. At times, she scrutinizes their countenances, seeking the nuances, the subtleties that would set one apart from the other. The truly harrowing aspect Shaw imparts to fledgling detectives is not that someone can mirror your appearance or voice. It is the fervor with which they desire to supplant you, eradicating themselves in the process. Identity extends beyond outward facade. It is a treasured possession we guard vigilantly, and at times we only appreciate its worth when it is imperiled by another's covetous grasp. Story 27. The aged apartment held its secrets, pipes that whispered, floorboards that murmured, but the new resident sensed a different presence, a subtle disturbance in the night. The footfalls above echoed with a purposeful rhythm, a deliberate cadence that belied the empty space beyond, yet she dwelled on the highest floor, alone in the quiet darkness. One evening, emboldened by curiosity, she tapped the ceiling with a broomstick. The sound ceased. A profound stillness enveloped the room. Then a solitary knock resounded from within the confines of the ceiling itself. Sarah Coleman chose to keep the peculiar incident to herself, attributing it to the settling of the building or perhaps a stray creature exploring the hidden recesses. Despite the nightly procession of the mysterious footsteps, she adjusted her routines, amplifying the television volume, donning headphones at bedtime, anything to mask the methodical pacing that traversed her ceiling in the shadows. Detective Morris stumbled upon the apartment's enigma when a maintenance worker uncovered a concealed crawl space during routine repairs. Removing a section of drywall to mend a leak, the worker unveiled a narrow passage unaccounted for in the building's blueprints. Illuminated by his flashlight, the passage revealed a clandestine living area, scattered food wrappers, discarded water bottles, a soiled blanket, and a weathered notebook. Alerted by the discovery, the building superintendent summoned the police without delay. Detective Morris, accompanied by his partner Detective Rivera, arrived to find the shaken maintenance worker murmuring. Someone dwelt within the walls, someone observed. Within the notebook lay meticulous notes on Sarah Coleman, her habits, her visitors, her meals, her routines. The neat script devolved into erratic scrawls, strange symbols adorning the margins. The final entry read, "The subject resists my overtures. She defies me. None defy me." Forensic teams combed the crawl space, uncovering fingerprints untraceable in any database. A labyrinth of passages intricately woven into the building's structure emerged, some dating back decades. These passages linked to 5 different apartments, culminating in observation points disguised as innocuous fixtures or minor imperfections, all converging upon Sarah Coleman's abode. Interviews with current residents yielded no anomalies beyond typical apartment noises. Former tenants, however, shared unsettling experiences. 3 predecessors of Sarah recounted sensations of being watched or inexplicable disturbances. One tenant vacated after a mere fortnight, their unease unspoken, fearing accusations of paranoia. The pivotal breakthrough arrived with the discovery of minuscule blood spatter in one of the crawl spaces. DNA analysis linked the traces to Martin Weaver, a former resident who vanished without a trace 4 years prior. Martin had resided directly beneath Sarah's apartment. Triggered by this revelation, Detective Morris revisited Martin's disappearance, uncovering a troubling history. Neighbors recounted Martin's grievances regarding noises from the apartment above, attributed to a solitary figure named Edward, reclusive and enigmatic. Following a confrontation with Edward, Martin vanished, prompting Edward's swift departure, leaving no forwarding details. A pattern emerged as investigators traced Edward's transient existence across multiple residences, each marked by solitude, departure, and a hunger for silence. Property records unveiled Edward's secluded rural abode, A cabin adorned with eerie artifacts, photographs of unsuspecting residents, intricate schematics of ventilation systems, and meticulous journals documenting his specimens and the habitat. A corkboard displayed missing persons reports, 6 of them, corresponding to former residents from Edward's past abodes. Beneath the board, gouges marred the wooden floor, evidence of a heavy burden dragged repeatedly. Behind the cabin, cadaver dogs led investigators to freshly disturbed earth, unveiling grim revelations. As forensic specialists labored to identify the remains, Detective Morris revisited Sarah's residence. Though the crawl spaces had been sealed, reports persisted of intermittent noises. During security installations, something caught the workers' attention, a new notebook nestled discreetly where the ceiling met the wall in the hallway. The notebook, resembling its predecessor, bore a single cryptic message. My old sanctuary uncovered, yet my new abode remains veiled. Its final page depicted a crude layout of Sarah's apartment, a crimson path delineating a new passage, alongside a date marking that very night. Swiftly, officers moved to evacuate Sarah, only to find her dwelling deserted. Her phone lay abandoned, the television droning on, the shower's echo filling the silence. Within the misted bathroom mirror materialized a chilling inscription traced by an unseen hand. Look up. The ceiling panel above the shower had been removed. The search for Edward, now identified as Edward Mercer, continued. A former construction worker adept at renovations, Edward's clandestine network of passages and observation points bore witness to his sinister machinations. Thermal scans revealed no current occupancy within the walls of Sarah's building. She remained missing, her fate entwined with a series of vanishing occurrences across state borders. Authorities issued warnings to apartment managers regarding covert modifications and concealed spaces. Amidst the harrowing discoveries, Detective Morris found himself haunted not by the graves or the journals, but by the image of Sarah, ensnared in her solitude, besieged by phantom footfalls in a dwelling void of an upper neighbor. At times, in the stillness of his own home, Detective Morris gazes upward, attuned to the night's whispers, pondering the unseen listeners lurking in the shadows.